horas de imágenes de satélite sobre el huracán Iván. Se puede apreciar ese ojo centro de circulación que continúa su movimiento hacia el norte y observen toda la nubosidad que abarca el sector prácticamente desde el este del Golfo de México hasta la Florida, y esas bandas de alimentación cargadas de humedad están provocando aguaceros intensos, específicamente sobre la zona de Miami. Aquí se puede apreciar la precipitación asociada con este sistema. Un avión de reconocimiento indica de que ahora el ojo está mejor organizado, el diámetro es de 50 millas náuticas y que existe ahora el ingreso de aire seco en el cuadrante occidental. Esto es indicativo de que quiere perder un poco de su furia. Precisamente los últimos datos indican de que tiene vientos de 135 millas por hora. Más temprano esta mañana estaba soplando con vientos de 140. Todavía permanece como categoría 4 en la escala Saffir-Simpson a 235 millas hacia el sur de Mobile, Alabama, y su paso es hacia el norte a razón de 13 millas por hora. Miren toda la nubosidad, ese ojo y centro de circulación, ya las bandas de alimentación provocando mucha lluvia sobre el sector de Nueva Orleans, Luisiana, llegando hasta Pensacola y también sobre la región de Tallahassee. ¿Cuál será el impacto cuando por fin este huracán ingrese en el sector? Se espera que lo haga sobre el centro de Alabama, posiblemente Mississippi. Es por esto que ya existe un aviso de huracán desde Grand Isle hasta Apalachicola y desde Apalachicola hasta Yankeetown un aviso de tormenta tropical. El primer impacto será de un oleaje sumamente picado. Se esperan olas de hasta 14 pies por todo este sector. Después un ingreso de mar de entre 1 pie a 3 pies. Cuando por fin entre la lluvia, más de 12 pulgadas de precipitación sobre Pensacola, entre 8 y 12 hacia el norte y la posibilidad de tornados en el cuadrante noreste. Nos alejamos ahora del Golfo de México, volamos sobre Cuba, República Dominicana y aquí tenemos a Puerto Rico, que actualmente la tormenta tropical Jeanne está azotando el sector ya con lluvias torrenciales y vientos fuertes. Se encuentra a 45 millas hacia el sur-sureste de San Juan, Puerto Rico, vientos de 70 millas por hora y es muy posible que tarde en el día de hoy llegue a categoría de huracán. Y un poco más adelante les voy a explicar la posibilidad de el huracán Iván.
Good afternoon, Delane. Good afternoon, everybody. Yesterday, we introduced you to Tropical Storm Jeanne, still a tropical storm this noon hour, but about 5 miles per hour away from gaining hurricane strength. Expected to become a hurricane by this afternoon or even as early as tomorrow morning. 17.8 north, 65.8 west. Movement west-northwest at 8 miles per hour, a little over 1,000 miles away from South Florida. Again, we are looking in the next 24 hours, a Category 1 hurricane, and could take a path anywhere toward South Florida or continue toward the right, toward the Bahamas and potentially into the mid-Atlantic. Right now, there are hurricane warnings in effect for portions of Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands under a hurricane watch. And later on today, Hurricane Center will have to make a decision whether or not to put southeastern Bahamas in under a hurricane watch or some sort of warning as the storm progresses in a west-northwesterly fashion. As we take a look at Hurricane Ivan, it is still a Category 4 storm, maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour, and it looks to remain a very strong storm as it makes landfall. Now notice the cone. We are now looking at landfall anywhere between Gulfport, Mississippi to Pensacola, Florida. And at this point, hurricane warnings are now in effect for portions of Louisiana well into the Panhandle, and tropical storm warnings all the way into Yankeetown, Florida. Again, this is not only going to be a coastal event. We are talking inland flooding extending well into the Tennessee River Valley. As the storm makes it on land or makes landfall, it is expected to stall somewhere in the Tennessee River Valley area, and it's going to affect portions, states all across the board here from the mid-Atlantic into portions of Georgia, and already impacting us today as we're seeing those thunder showers develop through the afternoon. Breezy, locally windy conditions, so again, be careful as you head out the door this afternoon. A couple more days of this sort of weather and then improvements by the weekend. Another update on your forecast coming up in this half hour.
Pegar muy cerca del área de Mobile, Alabama. Un ciclón sumamente intenso, sigue siendo de categoría 4 y tristemente no solamente será el viento, pero también la marejada ciclónica, lo que preocupa mucho a esta región de la bahía de Mobile, que es eso que ven ahí. En Nueva Orleans también ha habido gran preocupación sobre esta alza en el nivel del mar que está proyectada, pero no me parece que va a ser tan serio para New Orleans como lo va a ser para esta área de Alabama, porque precisamente para ahí es para donde va, al área fronteriza entre Mississippi y Alabama, a pegar contra esa costa. La Florida, por cierto, no se va a librar de vientos huracanados, los tendrán. Habrá algún incremento viento en la marea para esa región, pero no la marejada ciclónica que se debería anticipar para la bahía de Mobile. Por cierto, tornados también son posibles porque, como suele suceder con la llegada de huracanes a la costa, en su sector noreste, ahí está una alerta de tornados para la costa que incluye, como ven, el Panhandle floridano. Así que eso no se puede descartar para los residentes desde Pensacola hasta Panama City, Fort Walton Beach, toda esa región del norte de la Florida. Tiene vientos de 135 millas por hora, está solamente a 125 millas de llegar a la costa del área del ciclón Iván, y como ven ya queda bastante claro que va a ser ese sector precisamente pegado a la costa de Alabama. Mientras tanto, por acá más lejos está la tormenta Jeanne, que hoy ha cruzado a Puerto Rico. El centro de esta tormenta tropical entró por el municipio de Maunabo, ahora ha pasado por Barceloneta, que es como a 25 millas al oeste de San Juan, y está prácticamente sobre Arecibo actualmente, mientras va paralelo a la costa norte de la isla. Descomunales lluvias en Puerto Rico hoy, estimados del radar para allá, indican ya más de 10 pulgadas de lluvia, seguramente lo que será una acumulación entre 10 y 15 pulgadas para gran parte de la isla, y hay ríos desbordados por todas partes. También ha habido vientos de hasta 70 millas por hora, pero un viento de 70, como todos conocemos, causa algunos estragos, hay árboles derribados y el tendido eléctrico también, pero no una situación tan desastrosa como puede ser la lluvia que está impactando a Puerto Rico actualmente. ¿Y qué sucederá entonces después de Puerto Rico para Jeanne? Bueno, pasando muy pegado a la costa norte de República Dominicana. Qué bueno sería si se metiera, no por ustedes los dominicanos, obviamente, que no queremos que los afecte seriamente, pero una cosa que sí pudiera suceder es que sería bueno que entrara como solo tormenta tropical y entonces se desvaneciera por completo, porque las montañas de la isla de la Española terminarían con esta tormenta tropical por completo. Y lo bueno sería que no tendría tiempo para convertirse en huracán tampoco, aunque les produciría mucha lluvia. Pero en vez, lo que se pronostica es que llegue al área de las Bahamas y posiblemente en el fin de semana de un giro hacia el norte. Pero todavía hay muchas interrogantes de eso. Es un rumbo similar al de Frances, por lo menos hasta aquí. Después de eso hay que ver. Tengo una explicación completa en mi segmento del tiempo. Regreso a ustedes.
There, this is Pensacola, and there is the eye of Hurricane Ivan. Now, the core of the most destructive winds is actually associated with the eye wall. When you see this deep red convection, this is probably where they have the 135-mile-per-hour winds, but the hurricane-force winds just now starting to come on shore. As far as our local weather is concerned tomorrow, I'm anticipating our weather's actually going to be quite nice. What we can expect here across South Florida is the following: a mixture of just sunshine and clouds, warm and steamy conditions. Winds generally going to be out of the southeast at about 10 to 15 miles north. I still think that the intended landfall is going to be right here between Pensacola and also Mobile and Mobile Bay. Now, once this system starts to come on shore, this is when we anticipate the 10 to 16-foot storm surge on the right side of the hurricane. Keep in mind that the core hurricane force winds only extends outward about 105 miles from the center of circulation. So with the latest advisory, we're just starting to see those hurricane force winds just now starting to come in contact with the coastline there. That is Tropical Storm Jeanne, and Jeanne is going to have a tough time, I think, over the next 24 hours. One of the reasons why is that there's a 10,000-foot mountain range that is in the path of Tropical Storm Jeanne, and as the system continues to hug the coastline of Hispaniola, that air or the flow around Jeanne is going to be disrupted. Back in the year 2000, we had a hurricane that passed in that same direction, and Hispaniola tore up the center of circulation, and as a result, it was Debbie. Debbie fell apart. I don't think that Jeanne's going to fall apart, but at least Hispaniola and also eastern Cuba should keep the intensity from getting too strong in the days to come. Now, this is the 3-day forecast from the Hurricane Center. By Saturday, somewhere in the general vicinity of either eastern Cuba, or it could be as far north and to the east of the Turks and Caicos, and the general consensus of the forecast models is to continue turning the system to the north in the days to come. Of course, keep in mind, we're trying to track and try to pinpoint exactly where a tropical system is. It's 900 miles away. That is a very, very difficult thing to do, but at least I'm cautiously optimistic.
La mañana de hoy. Aquí está el centro del huracán Iván dirigiéndose hacia el área de Mobile, pero pegadito a la frontera con la Florida, cerca de Pensacola. Esto va a estar entre Mobile y Pensacola, en esa zona. Ya parece que el centro no va a entrar tanto en Mississippi, sino más bien ya sea Alabama o sea el área de Pensacola en la Florida, con esas bandas de precipitación causando tornados. Vean que el tiempo aquí está mucho más despejado. El pronóstico de cómo se va a comportar Iván en relación a Jeanne es bien difícil. Posiblemente el pronóstico de Jeanne sea el más difícil de todos los que hemos tenido que hacer durante esta temporada ciclónica, porque hay tantas cosas que estarán actuando sobre la tormenta tropical Jeanne. Aquí está la alta presión y el aire seco tratando de entrar entre Jeanne e Iván para entonces mantener a Jeanne en un rumbo general hacia el oeste-noroeste. Iván estará entrando a la nación norteamericana para posiblemente frenar. Y si ese fuera el caso, entonces al norte de Iván pudiera pasar otro sistema de alta presión que vendría a reforzar el que actualmente está manteniendo a Jeanne en un rumbo hacia el oeste-noroeste. Todo esto lo que termina haciendo entonces para nosotros es una situación donde vamos a tener que estar vigilando muy de cerca la trayectoria de Jeanne en los próximos días. Jeanne siguiendo hacia el oeste-noroeste gracias a esa alta presión. Iván sube, pero no lo agarra este frente débil en la parte este de los Estados Unidos. Viene esta otra alta presión que podría entonces pasarle por encima a Iván, unirse a la otra alta. Y si ese fuera el caso, entonces estamos hablando de una situación donde Jeanne pudiera acercarse bastante más a la Florida de lo que actualmente se está pronosticando. Si en vez de eso, esta alta no llega para reforzar a esta, Iván sube lo suficiente para mantener una zona débil de presiones aquí, entonces esto se va a mover hacia el norte. Un pronóstico bien complicado, bien difícil, pero me parece que el Centro Nacional de Huracanes, que esta noche, por cierto, ajusta su pronóstico, esto estaba más arriba en la tarde, lo ha ajustado un poquito más a la izquierda, no necesariamente está mostrando lo que pudiéramos decir va a ocurrir al final. O sea, esto va a moverse hacia el oeste, aquí va a empezar a frenar y vamos a llegar a un momento este fin de semana donde vamos a tener que ver si esto va a frenar aquí y meterse a la Florida o va a frenar aquí para entonces escaparse hacia el norte. Difícil el pronóstico, tendremos que estar pendientes y por el momento sencillamente piensen que Jeanne va a ser otro dolor de cabeza en los próximos días. 89 va a ser la máxima del día de mañana. Yo espero buen tiempo mañana aquí en el sur de la Florida y esperen mientras tanto que en el mar la condición empiece a mejorar. Deben ejercer precaución aún, pero ya mañana estará 10 a 15 nudos el viento y las olas disminuyendo 2 a 4 pies. Buen tiempo jueves, viernes, algunos aguaceros dispersos el sábado, domingo.
They do, and we do have a couple of other tropical waves that's waiting to move into the eastern Caribbean. But first, let's get a look at Ivan at this hour. Ivan is still moving northward, and you can see at the last minute made that turn toward Mobile, Alabama. You can see the brunt of this storm already making landfall, but it's going to be the lingering effects as the storm moves northward into Tennessee that is going to pose threats of flooding as well as coastal storm surge flooding still along the west coast of Florida, and tornadoes again popping up yesterday late night and early today through the evening hours. Here's the latest coordinates of Jeanne. I actually have an update if you are monitoring the situation and keeping track with us. As of 8 o'clock, 18.7 north longitude, 68.4 west, maximum sustained winds now of 80 miles per hour, a Category 1 hurricane. And it is moving west-northwest at about 9-10 miles per hour. Notice the warnings and watches now in effect. Watches for the Turks and Caicos Islands. Keeping our eyes out on the southeastern Bahamas was hammered with not only Ivan but also Francis over the last couple of weeks. So still not recovered from those problems. And the east coast of the Dominican Republic standing guard now as this becomes a hurricane. We'll be watching, monitoring this situation. I'll show you the forecast.
Gulf Shores, Alabama. And right now, they are still getting hit with a storm. Some people are projecting that this storm could take 24 hours to pass them entirely, and already the damage is extensive. In Mobile, Alabama, wind and rain brought a fire that raged out of control. The strong Category 3 storm bringing some heavy rain, punishing wind, and a 16-foot storm surge. Port Sulphur pounded by wind and rain, and this mobile home nearly swept away in rising water. The flag ripped to shreds. This boat marooned, shuttering street signs, and wind peels away this tin roof like a sardine can. The wind so strong it battered this motel sign, then picked it up and carried it away, leaving behind a fractured frame. Before landfall in Panama City Beach, the roof ripped off this building, debris haphazardly hanging off this gas station, power lines draped across homes and roads. This apartment building surveyed by authorities unidentifiable. At landfall, the Gulf side city hit with the northeast quadrant, the worst part of the storm, and it spawned deadly tornadoes.
The whole house shook for like 10 seconds, and you seen blue and green lights, and then it was over.
Take a look at this amazing home video. Watch this mass of dark clouds. You start to see a tail of a tornado form. Now look a little closer at more home video. You'll see the twister picking up and tossing debris, ultimately killing 2 people.
So everything's been going smooth till this tornado touched down, and unfortunately.
Coming a little more organized, the outer band still stretching into portions of Puerto Rico, but this storm expected to move across the Dominican Republic. There is hurricane warnings now in effect for the east coast of the Dominican Republic, as well as hurricane watches for southeastern Bahamas. You can see this storm still small and compact, but is expected to create torrential rain downpour in the area and continue in a west-northwesterly motion. Let's get a latest look at the coordinates tracking Hurricane Jeanne. 18.7 north, 68.4 west. Movement is northwest at 9 miles per hour. Pressure at 985 now. Winds 80 miles per hour. That's Category 1 hurricane, 900 miles now southeast of South Florida. Here's a look at latest on Storm Scan. Watching this system over the next couple of days. It's not going to be a weekend event for South Florida, but by Monday and Tuesday of next week, you can see the margin of error puts us within this cone, and if this storm continues in a west-northwesterly motion, we could be very much in the danger zone, or if it makes a more northwesterly track or a right turn by the end of the weekend into the next work week, doesn't look like we'll have anything to worry about it. In that case, it's going to be a Bahamas event, something we're watching for the islands there, and again, by the end of the weekend, we'll know more on this storm. Taking a look now.
Hurricane Ivan, a major Category 3 storm.
Back to reality.
Of the Dominican Republic, but just before making landfall across the eastern tip of the Dominican Republic, it did become a hurricane. Top winds 80 miles an hour. It should weaken a bit and then become a hurricane again as it bumps off of the DR and heads out into the southeastern Bahamas. So 2 Category 1 hurricanes now. Ivan is on the way down. Jeanne is on the way up. It's going to be strengthening over the next several days. It should make a turn more to the northwest, but it's too soon to say if it will affect South Florida. We'll keep you posted.
All right, John, thanks so much, and keep it tuned.
It out, bridges washed away, building after building ripped apart.
Esta noche es sencillamente una depresión tropical. Ha perdido todo lo que es el viento fuerte que tuvo cuando llegó al área de Alabama durante la madrugada de hoy. Pero como ven, todavía hay alerta de tornados aquí en partes de Georgia, Carolina del Sur, incluso Carolina del Norte también, mientras la precipitación sube por la zona montañosa de las Apalaches, que empieza aquí en el extremo norte de Georgia y sigue hasta el extremo noreste de los Estados Unidos. En las montañas es donde surgen usualmente las inundaciones súbitas asociadas con los ciclones. Mientras tanto, estamos viendo a Jeanne aquí sobre territorio dominicano. Por cierto, con mucha lluvia todavía impactando al área de Puerto Rico. Jeanne se ha estado moviendo muy lentamente durante el día de hoy. Está prácticamente sobre la península de Samaná. Esto es en el noreste de República Dominicana y mantiene vientos de 70 millas por hora. Pero como se ha mantenido tan cerca del mar en todo momento, ha podido mantener alguna de su estructura. O sea, no se ha disipado desafortunadamente, o sea, está demasiado cerca del mar y no suficientemente tierra adentro en territorio dominicano donde están las montañas de la cordillera central para poder acabar con Jeanne. Así que esa noticia no es buena. La otra que no es buena es la cantidad de lluvia que sigue impactando al área de Puerto Rico. En Vieques han recibido 23 pulgadas de lluvia del evento de Jeanne, ya con su centro en territorio dominicano donde está lloviendo, pero como ven, esta banda de alimentación se ha permanecido en el área de las Islas Vírgenes y también la Isla Grande de Puerto Rico, donde ya vieron al principio de este noticiero la cantidad de inundaciones que se desataron. Aviso de tormenta tropical para gran parte de República Dominicana y también el norte de Haití. Tenemos aviso de huracán para las islas sureste de las Bahamas y ya una vigilancia de huracán cubre las Bahamas centrales tan al oeste como las islas Exumas. Las Bahamas occidentales sería lo próximo en términos de advertencias sobre Jeanne. Actualmente, como dije, vientos de 70 millas por hora pegadito al norte de la costa dominicana, 65 millas al norte-nordeste de Santo Domingo. ¿Y para dónde se va a mover? Del área de Santo Domingo hacia las Islas Bahamas y, según el Centro Nacional de Huracanes, hacia el área del sureste del país. Esta tarde la tenían en Carolina del Sur, esta noche la tienen en Georgia. La Florida pudiera ser próximo mientras siguen ajustando el curso hacia el oeste como les había anticipado. Mientras tanto, esto es la nueva tormenta tropical Carl, localizada en el lejano Atlántico. Hay una nueva tormenta, ya 11 tormentas en esta temporada ciclónica. Carl está a 730 millas al oeste-suroeste de las islas Cabo Verde, está bien lejos del Caribe. Y la buena noticia es que Carl debería girar hacia el norte antes de poder llegar a las Antillas. Digo debería, hay una vaguada en las capas altas de la atmósfera que debería causar que esto gire hacia el norte, así que mantengamos los dedos cruzados para que no haya que estar preocupándose por Carl, que es este sistema, durante los próximos días. Bueno, Jeanne está sobre territorio dominicano esta noche en la parte norte de República Dominicana, con la lluvia todavía impactando a Puerto Rico, donde las inundaciones han sido severas. Y mientras tanto, Iván, ya saben, está en los Estados Unidos causando intensas lluvias en el Valle del Mississippi y sobre las montañas Apalaches. Un debilísimo frente frío es este que ven aquí. No es suficientemente intenso para recoger a Iván y llevárselo rápidamente hacia el nordeste. En vez, detrás de ese frente viene un fuerte sistema de alta presión, este que está aquí. O sea que Iván va a tratar de hacer lo que nosotros queríamos que hiciera, que se moviera a la parte este de los Estados Unidos. Y al hacer eso va a crear una debilidad entonces entre la alta continental y la alta presión de las Bermudas, que es la que ha estado guiando a Jeanne saliendo de República Dominicana. Debe entrar entonces a las Islas Bahamas guiado por esa alta. Pero ¿qué sucede? La alta de los Estados Unidos, la que está sobre el país, debe crecer y unirse a la otra. Y entonces la interrogante es que si Iván, aquí en el este del país, ya para cuando venga Jeanne saliendo de Dominicana para entrar en las Bahamas, se ha disipado, entonces esta alta estaría tan fuerte que pudiera bloquear el posible escape de Jeanne hacia el norte, que es lo que queremos que haga. Nosotros queremos que esto se vaya hacia el norte y que nunca llegue a la Florida, es más, que nunca llegase a ningún estado del sureste de los Estados Unidos. Pero primero, que eso que acabo de comentar me parece improbable. Yo pienso que Jeanne sí va a chocar con algún estado del sureste de los Estados Unidos. De eso me cabe poca duda. Ahora, la pregunta es, ¿qué estado? O sea, más al norte, como planteaba el Centro Nacional de Huracanes esta tarde, o ahora planteando ellos el área de Georgia, o será la Florida. El pesimismo que ustedes han visto en mí durante estos días no es tanto pensando en Miami y Fort Lauderdale específicamente. Mi preocupación es por la Florida. Si esto fuera a chocar con la Florida, no estoy seguro dónde lo haría, pero me parece que esta trayectoria del centro de huracanes que he estado presentando va a seguir haciendo ajustes a la izquierda mientras se van dando cuenta de lo que hemos estado comentando, de que posiblemente no haya escape hacia el norte y que sencillamente entonces Jeanne posiblemente llegue a las Bahamas, trate de irse, pero no pueda y tenga que hacer un giro hacia el oeste. Donde haga ese giro es crítico. Ese giro hacia el oeste sería causado por ese sistema de alta presión que dije, creciendo desde los Estados Unidos hacia el Atlántico Occidental. Tendremos que estar pendientes en los próximos.
It was a hurricane. It downgraded as it interacted with the Dominican Republic, still skirting the northern coast there of Hispaniola. Tropical storm warnings in effect for the area. Here's the latest coordinates from the National Hurricane Center: 19.8 north, 70.9 west, winds at 65 miles per hour, a little over 700 miles away still from South Florida, but keeping a close eye on it as this may become a player in our forecast by early next week. Let's get a look at Storm Scan, giving you a better idea of its projected path. Again, it's expected to make its west-northwest movement continuing through the next 24 to 48 hours and make more of a northwesterly turn as it becomes a hurricane. Sometime Sunday morning could be a Category 1 hurricane, up to 85 mile per hour winds, and then continue on that west-northwesterly track. At this point, differences in the models as to whether or not it's going to make a left-hand turn, a sharp left-hand turn towards South Florida, or if it's going to gradually continue toward Georgia or the mid-Atlantic states. Again, that is something we're going to have to watch through the weekend and the early portions of next week. Let's get a look on the latest on tropical.
Y creo que ese es el mensaje de este fin de semana. O sea, tenemos bastante tiempo para observar esto. Al cabo y al final termina todavía siendo alguna amenaza para la Florida, pero por el momento está tan debilitada y está moviéndose tan lentamente que yo creo que podemos vigilarla sencillamente durante el fin de semana sin demasiado nerviosismo, y entonces veremos a ver cómo todo esto termina la semana que viene. Por el momento, pues lo dijeron bien claro, esto se debilitó muchísimo, la topografía de la isla de la Española, causando que se debilitara hasta el punto que esto fuera solamente una depresión tropical durante unas horas. El centro de circulación es ese claro que ven aquí, justo al norte de Haití. Ese es el centro de circulación de la tormenta tropical Jeanne esta noche. Casi toda la actividad de tormentas que estaba totalmente desplazada hacia el este comparado con la localización del centro, pues ahora empieza a regresar alguna actividad de tormenta cerca de ese núcleo del sistema y eso es indicativo de que se pueda estar fortaleciendo de nuevo. Ahora, claro, perdió la batalla con las montañas, muy debilitado. Hay montañas de hasta 10, 11 mil pies de altura dentro de República Dominicana y eso fue lo que causó que Jeanne pasara de huracán a depresión nada más. De ahora en adelante debe volver a cobrar fuerza sobre las aguas muy cálidas que están localizadas cerca de las Bahamas. ¿Y qué pasa entonces de lunes en adelante? Pues veremos a ver. Pudiera detenerse, pudiera moverse hacia la Florida, pudiera a lo mejor terminar disipándose. Sencillamente tendremos el fin de semana para vigilar exactamente cómo se comporta. Por el momento les digo que tiene vientos de 45 millas por hora esta noche, tiene un lento movimiento hacia el oeste-noroeste y está localizada a 100 millas al suroeste de la isla Grand Turk. El Centro Nacional de Huracanes básicamente no sabe qué hacer con esto y los entiendo porque el pronóstico está sumamente complicado. Ellos la mueven hacia el noroeste, luego norte y la detienen por 3 días a la altura de Cabo Cañaveral sin moverse un ápice durante lunes, martes y miércoles. Veremos a ver cómo termina siendo todo esto, como dije. Más en mi segmento del tiempo. Regreso a ustedes.
Y en zonas como San Pedro de Macorís tuvieron que refugiarse sobre los techos de las casas debido a las grandes inundaciones.
Por lo menos 6 personas perdieron la vida, incluyendo una bebita de 4 meses, cuya casa fue aplastada por un deslave de lodo en la capital. Estos daños se suman a los de Puerto Rico, donde Jeanne dejó a casi 4 millones de personas sin electricidad y causó 2 muertes.
Is already creating quite a mess down south throughout Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and heading towards the Bahamas. At this point, Jeanne is moving to the north-northwest at 5 miles an hour. Not very fast, still tropical storm status, but moving more and has strengthened more since yesterday. Still quite a ways away from Miami, but the next area to get hit will be the southeastern portions of the Bahamas. We were talking earlier about how the models kind of really don't know what to do with Jeanne. There are so many other forces going on right now that a lot of the models push Jeanne back out to the Atlantic, moving east, then turning back around and heading back to the west. So Jeanne, really, we're trying to wait to see what high pressure system is going to do and what the steering currents in our region are going to do. But if we go with the model that we use most of all to show you the cone of error, this is what it looks like over the next few days, moving through the weekend and then heading into the new work week. By Wednesday, Thursday, Jeanne is still a tropical storm, still meandering in the Atlantic and has not even come close to the landfall. But notice the cone kind of takes Jeanne at least towards the eastern seaboard of Florida. So really is one to watch, but at this point, Bahamas will get hit by this storm. We just have to wait and see where in the U.S. that Jeanne is going to hit. Hopefully, it won't strengthen more than a tropical storm. Models aren't showing that it will, but of course, over the next couple of days, these storm tracks and models do change. So stay tuned here to Local 10. Don No and Trent Eric have all your forecasts during the week. Now, as we see on here, tropical storm warning for the southeastern portions of the Bahamas. That's where the storm is headed next. And then there are tropical storm watches in effect for the central part of the Bahamas, including the Exumas. Carl, we'd like to show you, just to show you it's working out there. This is a Category 1 hurricane, not real strong, but you notice the center and eye definitely developing in there as it moves in the Atlantic. Once again, this is moving towards the northwest at 15 miles an hour, still nearly 3,000 miles away from the U.S. coast. What we think is that as Carl moves forward in its track, we will just see it kind of move towards the northwest. Then there will be a definite turn towards the north by Tuesday and even Wednesday. Even on into Thursday, this hurricane just heads off into the northern Atlantic. So even if it becomes a Category 3, Category 4, nobody really has to worry about Carl at this point. What's going on?
A weather alert tonight. A severe thunderstorm warning issued for parts of Broward County.
It is a busy night in the Weather Center, so let's get you over to meteorologist Tom Johnston. He joins us now with the latest. Hey, Tom.
All right, Sharon and Charles. Hey, you guys. Let's take a look at 7 storm scan. This storm flared up in the last hour or so, mainly affecting rural areas, but motorists heading out on I-75 Alligator Alley are getting pummeled right now by this storm and the possibility of some dime-sized hail within this cell, also the lightning and some heavy rain and strong winds to go along with it. All moving to the south at 10. This is the county line, Miami-Dade, so it is headed to the south. The focus, though, again, is across the rural areas and into the Everglades. However, you can see a finger heading into the Fort Lauderdale area in 595. It's headed to the south out of Lauderhill and Plantation, headed to the south. So we'll have to watch it and see if this will flare up on the eastern side. As of right now, it hasn't done it. Let's take a look at the satellite right now, and you see our little flare-up. The other source will show the satellite right now, and you're going to see the little flare-up that took place here in South Florida. There it is right there. Little impulse of energy wrapping around a trough of low pressure, which I'm going to show you in just a second. This is Tropical Storm Jeanne, gaining some intensity at least with winds of 50 miles per hour. Coordinates now showing that we do have a tropical storm in progress with 50-mile-per-hour winds, 24.5 north, 72.3 west. It's moving to the north at 8 miles per hour. It's 500 miles to the east-southeast of Miami. There's the trough I just spoke of. There's the little impulse within the trough, and that's why we're seeing some scattered showers and storms. It's basically on the southern edge of this front. Front basically leads troughs in the upper levels, and certainly we're going to be unsettled as Florida is stuck with this front. As we look further out, we're talking about Hurricane Carl, which is a massive system, a Category 4, our fourth of the season, but it doesn't appear as if it will affect us at all as we head through the forecast. Some 500 miles, gathering some steam. You can see good outflow and good convection around the core. This could become a hurricane before the day is through. Right now, a tropical storm, and the latest coordinates go like this. 24.5 north, 72.3 west. It's moving north at 8 miles per hour. The good news, supposed to bend to the northeast. The bad news, supposed to hang around after that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it'll probably meander. We'll have to watch it for you. Certainly we will do that. Carl, well out in the Atlantic by some 2,400 miles. That's South America right there. Expected to turn to the northeast eventually, so not a problem. Where is TD number 13? It's to the west, I should say, to the east of Carl. So it's even farther out, sort of following in Carl's heels or footsteps.
And Jeanne permanece estancada hacia el este de la península floridana, pero cobrando fuerza, y eso es un poco preocupante. Mientras tanto, muy lejos desde la costa este tenemos el huracán Carl y también la tormenta tropical Lisa que le está siguiendo los pasos a Carl. Vamos a ver qué es lo que ocurre. Este sistema continúa muy bien organizado, pero yo creo que le está robando toda la potencia a esta pequeña tormenta tropical. Así que si se mantiene con su proximidad a Carl, yo creo que no va a durar mucho en el Atlántico. Mientras tanto, aquí podemos apreciar los últimos datos. Vientos de 65 millas por hora. Se encuentra a 345 millas hacia el este de la isla Gran Ábaco y por el momento se está desplazando hacia el norte a razón de 8 millas por hora. Y si nos trasladamos ahora hacia la península floridana, aquí tenemos un sistema de altas presiones. Se encuentra muy lejos en el océano Atlántico, prácticamente a 810 millas hacia el oeste de las islas Cabo Verde. Y aquí tenemos el huracán Carl, vientos de 120 millas por hora, a 1010 millas hacia el este de las Antillas Menores. Y la buena noticia es que los dos sistemas se estarán desplazando hacia el Atlántico Norte durante los próximos 3 a 4.
In here, and this gap is from the other part of Ivan that went by to the north. And so Carl is going to run right up in that gap, and that'll be it for Carl. But this little hunk of high in here, sticking in there, it looks like that's going to push Lisa kind of like that and then maybe back on up. So we'll have to watch Lisa, a little tiny storm system at this point, and this new one, whatever happens with that, looks like it's going to move on off to the west as well. Now off we go over here to Jeanne and the remnants of Ivan. Ivan comes across the state, ends up in the Gulf. Does it regenerate? That's a possibility. And Jeanne is sitting out here. Now here's the deal with Jeanne. Here are the possibilities. One is that old Ivan dip in the jet stream that's going to get Carl. Finally, if Jeanne gets far enough that way, it's just going to go that way. The other possibility is this high sticks in here and kind of pushes Jeanne back that way eventually. The other possibility is it sits there till this next dip comes along. So that's why Jeanne is kind of forecast.
Okay, ya estamos familiarizados con ella, que es Jeanne, y esta fue la imagen que yo les presenté el viernes. Jeanne había perdido su batalla con República Dominicana, nos dio la oportunidad de descansar durante el fin de semana sin tener que preocuparnos mucho de ella, pero desde entonces, al igual que habíamos planteado, se ha movido hacia el norte, está localizada al norte de las Bahamas y su progreso actualmente está bloqueado por este fuerte sistema de alta presión localizado cerca de la costa atlántica de los Estados Unidos. Se ha fortalecido de nuevo y Jeanne ha vuelto a ser huracán esta tarde. Tiene vientos máximos sostenidos de 85 millas por hora, pero fíjense, se está moviendo hacia el noreste 7 millas por hora. Se espera que vaya frenando en las próximas horas. Está como a 370 millas al este-noreste de la isla Abaco y como a 500 millas de Miami actualmente, una distancia relativamente cómoda de Jeanne de nosotros. Y lo que me hace sentir un poco mejor esta semana en cuanto a Jeanne se refiere es que aunque va a estar casi detenida, merodeando por un par de días, tal vez incluso hasta haciendo una vuelta de carnero aquí en el área al norte de República Dominicana, por cierto, bastante distante de República Dominicana, no se espera que cuando dé esta vuelta completa regrese hacia aquí, hacia el oeste. Ya eso yo no lo veo sucediendo. Lo que veo es que en algún momento habrá una vaguada que se la va a llevar hacia el norte. Claro, Jeanne, siendo una de tres, sí, Jeanne está bloqueada por ese sistema de alta presión, pero ya no la veo como un peligro inminente para la Florida. Mientras tanto, este gigante aquí es Carl. Carl, otro ciclón de gran categoría, y por aquí está Lisa, la tormenta tropical. Carl se debe ir hacia el norte, Lisa le pudiera pasar por el sur, y entonces tal vez Lisa sea la que tengamos que vigilar durante esta semana en cuanto a su progreso y su trayectoria durante esta semana laboral se refiere. Pero como bien dijeron, 3 tormentas tropicales, o sea, 3 ciclones tropicales, 2 de ellos huracán, 1 tormenta tropical, y habrá mucho de qué hablar desafortunadamente todavía, pero afortunadamente ninguna de las 3 representa un peligro inmediato para la Florida. Regreso a ustedes.
Delane and Richard, good afternoon, everybody. The 3 storms we're talking about, the most deadliest of those storms, once Tropical Storm Jeanne, now Hurricane Jeanne, maximum sustained winds at 70 miles per hour. It is floating, just drifting aimlessly across the open waters of the Atlantic, just east of South Florida. And you can see the storm still well organized at this point, moving northward and then toward the east, and will be left hanging here for the next several days. Meanwhile, behind this, trailing this system, we've got Hurricane Carl, Category 3 storm now, downgraded from earlier this morning. But our main concern is Tropical Storm Lisa, because it looks like what will happen is trough moving in, will pick up Carl, move it toward the northeast, and then Tropical Storm Lisa right now could become a hurricane in the next 24 hours, may undercut Carl and move toward the Caribbean in a week's time or so. The latest coordinates from Tropical Storm Lisa is 14.2 north, 39.7 west, and about 5 miles per hour shy from becoming a hurricane at this point, moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour, again just trailing behind. This is Hurricane Carl, just trailing behind Carl. Carl, move out of the way. This will potential for undercutting Carl. Latest on Storm Scan, giving you a time frame and the direction that the system is headed is to take a more westerly direction toward the Caribbean. If that is the projected path, again, we're well ahead of that. We're looking at a week's time frame and could become a hurricane or Category 1 hurricane as early as Thursday morning. Again, something we have to closely monitor in the days to come. Still too early to know. We'll take another look at the rest of your rest of the tropics as well as your local forecast coming up in 15 minutes.
All right, Alita, see you then. Hurricane Jeanne causing unimaginable horror in Haiti, lives lost numbering in the hundreds, and South Florida calling for some much-needed help. 7's Sharon Melton is live in the Newsplex with the story this noon. Sharon?
Delane, the death toll continues to climb after Tropical Storm Jeanne left a devastating path of destruction throughout Haiti. And with 622 people reported dead, the numbers are expected to climb. Now the call is going out around South Florida for help.
Walls of water and mud is all anyone sees throughout the Haitian city of Gonaïves. This after Tropical Storm Jeanne left its deadly mark. Everywhere you look, people try desperately to find relief from the water that has no end and find food and shelter. Now, with over 600 people dead, hundreds injured, and crops that produce the country's food utterly destroyed,
dry goods, medication.
A call is coming from South Florida's Haitian community, pleading for help.
We are making an appeal to community residents, to the business community, to come and help out.
When the storm hit the island over the weekend, no one could have imagined the chaos and large amount of destruction this tropical storm would leave behind. In the hardest hit area of Gonaïves, people struggled and scrambled to get to higher ground, but for many, it was too late.
The situation is very chaotic there in Haiti still. There are still a lot of people missing. Family members are in disarray. There are some family members, from what reports that we got from Port-de-Paix, who are still living on the top of their roofs because they can't climb down.
Making matters worse, the storm comes only months after devastating floods killed hundreds of Haitians on the country's southern border. And while Red Cross relief is on the way and 3,000
certainly starting to make its way. Again, remnants of Ivan. We're seeing it over central and southern Florida this afternoon. First, want to talk about the tropics, though. Hurricane Jeanne, this is the latest advisory, 27.5 north, 69.3 west. Again, a Category 1 hurricane at 90 miles per hour. Here it is, just kind of meandering off in the Atlantic. Again, something we're going to closely watch as it may loop back toward the west. At this point, forecast path is still showing it moving toward the northeast, being picked up by a trough. So great news for us. Don't have to deal with that for a while. Here's the latest look on the water, or rather the imagery. You can see it's still pretty good, well organized as it moves toward the northeast, carried by that trough, and that trough may influence Hurricane Carl and bring it toward the northeast as well over the next 24 hours. Now, trailing behind Carl, we're dealing with Tropical Storm Lisa. The latest coordinates on Carl, by the way, 21.4 north and 48 degrees west. Tropical Storm Lisa, we're going to have to watch this one. As Carl lifts toward the north and northeast, it looks like Tropical Storm Lisa may cut underneath Carl and start projecting toward the Caribbean, and that's why we are going to closely monitor this situation, especially for those islands that have already been hit by Hurricane Jeanne. Moving west-northwest right now at 10 miles per hour, a little over 1,000.
Tres tormentas, bueno, un huracán, otro huracán, tormenta tropical y esto que viene detrás, posiblemente ya para mañana una nueva depresión tropical que se formaría en la tormenta tropical Matthew, quizás antes del final del día de mañana. Así de activo está el Atlántico actualmente. Jeanne es la que está más cerca de la Florida, pero afortunadamente está como a 700 millas de nosotros, y aunque ha estado merodeando en esta zona ya desde la semana pasada prácticamente, se espera que cuando por fin dé esta vuelta completa que debe ya dar, tome un giro que tal vez la lleve hacia la costa sureste de los Estados Unidos, pero no la Florida, sino otros lugares. Por el momento, vientos de 90 millas por hora con Jeanne. Tiene la latitud y longitud en pantalla. Miren el movimiento hacia el sur. O sea, va a dar esta vuelta completa y va a acercarse ya en algún momento al final de esta semana, posiblemente a la costa sureste de los Estados Unidos. Pero como ven, muy improbable la Florida y mucho menos el sur de la Florida. Eso no lo veo sucediendo afortunadamente con Jeanne, pero lo que sí, intensificándose a huracán de categoría 2, dando la vuelta completa y posiblemente amenazando a las Carolinas de aquí al final de la semana. Esta no es Jeanne, esta es Carl, gran huracán sobre el medio del Atlántico, y por acá está Lisa, pequeñísimo sistema Lisa, localizado entre Carl acá al norte y la nueva depresión tropical que se está formando. Lisa tiene vientos de 70 millas por hora y se ha estado moviendo hacia el oeste-noroeste a razón de 7 millas por hora, 1.100 millas al oeste de las Islas Cabo Verde, pero vean el ajuste en la proyección del Centro Nacional de Huracanes. Ahora la van subiendo más y más, o sea que Lisa no va a ser un peligro ni para el Caribe ni para los Estados Unidos, lo mismo que está sucediendo con Carl, que no es amenaza para ninguno de los dos.
Show you on real-time Doppler 4. Much of Broward is quiet, but some pretty heavy rain continues to fall, especially central and southern sections of Miami-Dade County. Now, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches has fallen around the Dadeland area, so many streets are covered with water in these areas. Also, heavy rain continues from downtown Miami through Coral Gables, down through Cutler Ridge, Perrine, and Kendall. This area is slowly sinking to the south. Going to be a wet afternoon. A quick update on the tropics. We continue to watch Hurricane Jeanne located to our east, strengthening somewhat, and it is forecast to eventually start to move back to the west, and the remnants of Ivan getting itself better organized. Lisa, we don't think are going to affect anybody. They are under a changing weather pattern out there that should keep them out in the Atlantic. Jeanne was able to sneak by, though, before that weather pattern changed, and so we're paying a little more concern, watching Jeanne a little more closely. Here's what's going on over the last 24 hours. You can see Jeanne located there off to our east. And watch the center. This was 24 hours ago. Watch what happened as Jeanne moves at first to the southeast, and then to the south, and then towards the end of the loop there to the southwest. So Jeanne is in the process of doing this loop, what we call an anticyclonic loop. It's like a high pressure system going around in a clockwise manner, and there is Jeanne as of right now. Close up through the day, you can see Jeanne's presentation on the satellite looking better. Hurricane hunters have been out there and found that the pressure is in fact dropping a little bit, and winds are forecast to come up, and you can see on the satellite a very well-defined eye, very clear, very visible, cleared out, and the thunderstorms and convection around Jeanne there. So what's going to happen with Jeanne? First, the advisory, 26.1 north, 69.0 west, 100-mile-an-hour winds moving to the west-southwest now. It was moving southwest earlier, southeast even before that. Pressure down to 967 millibars, about 500 miles east of Great Abaco in the northern Bahamas. What's going to happen all depends upon the high, and I'll show you that high in just a second. But for the next several days, Jeanne should make a west to west-northwest track. Now, if it makes a very slow turn in this loop, that would certainly bring the center of Jeanne closer to the Bahamas and could eventually have implications for Florida. If it makes a tighter loop and gets moving here, it could stay away from the Bahamas. That would have implications farther up the coast, and that's where the 5-day risk area goes through Monday in this area. But as you can see, through the weekend, we're going to have to keep our eyes on Jeanne because that is the Saturday time frame somewhere in that area, and that does include portions of eastern Florida. Here's the high. It'll focus right on there, and you can see clearly that swirl going on. That is the upper level high showing up very nicely on the water vapor loop there. There is Jeanne located to the southeast, and it's all going to be about where this high ends up when Jeanne passes to the south of the high and close to us. So watch what happens over the next several days as the high moves to the east. Jeanne right now moving to the west-southwest, but watch as the high moves east and the little arrow with Jeanne starts to turn as that high begins to affect Jeanne. Now, if the high ends up about there, Jeanne makes a west motion and then a northwest motion. If the high, though, doesn't quite get that far east, if the high is farther to the west, that puts Jeanne on the southern part of that high and moves Jeanne more to the west. We wouldn't like to see that. What we'd like to see ideally is that high scooting farther to the east, and Jeanne, in fact, recurving and maybe not affecting the U.S. at all. At this point, it's all about...
There's a position by 2 o'clock tomorrow with this error cone, on either side. By 2 o'clock on Friday, the storm could be getting close to the northwest Bahamas, and it's possible that there could be watches and warnings issued for the northwest Bahamas here in the next day or two. Then the storm continues to do that before it's forecast to move sharply to the north, just barely missing the state of Florida, and then continuing to the north of that, possibly close to the Carolinas by 2 p.m. on Monday. But again, we could see the storm off in either direction here. So Jeanne was a storm we always knew wasn't really going to go away, and now it's going to probably come back and do that. If it does that track here in South Florida, we are going to be okay. Now, here's something else interesting. This thing in the Gulf of Mexico is kind of a remnant of Ivan. Ivan moved to the north. There was a trough of low pressure that formed, a little low pressure area east of Florida a couple days ago. That has drifted into the Gulf of Mexico. And a reconnaissance aircraft now is flying close to this center, which is right about in here. If they find a close center, we could start reinitiating advisories on Ivan. I didn't think that was possible. I thought the parent storm was long gone, but apparently this is a little remnant, so that is interesting. Meanwhile, Carl, we don't care about. Lisa is probably going to be swallowed up by the next thing, which is going to be...
Anticipado. El problema es que queremos que haga ese giro y siga dando la vuelta y después se vaya hacia el norte, que no venga a molestar a la Florida. Y la pregunta es exactamente qué tan al sur va a llegar. O sea, ven que hacia el suroeste se ha estado moviendo durante la noche de hoy un ojo sumamente grande en este huracán que ahora tiene vientos de 100 millas por hora. Para que tengan perspectiva, aquí está la costa cubana, aquí están las Islas Bahamas, apenas se ve partes del sureste de los Estados Unidos. Y esto se ha estado moviendo hacia el oeste-suroeste durante las últimas horas. Tiene vientos, como dije, de 100 millas por hora, es de categoría 2. Y lo que está haciendo es haciendo esa vuelta que habíamos estado anticipando. Pero que acabe ya de dar para el oeste para que entonces pueda ir para el noroeste. Por el momento está hacia el oeste-suroeste. ¿Por qué queremos que acabe de dar la vuelta? Bueno, porque ya está prácticamente a la latitud de Miami, 25.6 grados norte. Si esto baja demasiado, pues entonces nos va a poner a sudar durante los próximos días debido a la trayectoria que se espera que sea más hacia el oeste en los próximos días. Precisamente aquí está la trayectoria proyectada por el Centro Nacional de Huracanes, una que lleva el centro de este huracán hacia las costas de las Carolinas, pero como ven acercándose bastante a la costa central y norte de la Florida, no la del sur de la Florida, pero estamos en ese cono de incertidumbre de aquí al fin de semana y repito, queremos que empiece a moverse hacia el oeste y que empiece entonces a dar ese giro hacia el noroeste durante el viernes en la noche y durante el día del sábado para que nos deje a nosotros en paz. Y lo importante entonces es observarla cuidadosamente durante el día de mañana a ver exactamente cómo se va a ir comportando. Esto que está en el Golfo de México es Iván, que bien renació como depresión tropical y ahora tormenta tropical con vientos de 40 millas por hora sobre el Golfo, se dirigirá al área de la costa tejana. Tengo mucho más de Jeanne.
No ha concluido, están considerando su muerte como homicidio. La semana pasada, el padrastro de Dilcia dijo haberla encontrado muerta en la casa móvil donde la joven residía junto a él y a la madre en el 9674 Northwest de la 10ª Avenida. La policía ha dicho...
De nuevo, vientos de
25.6 north, 69.7 west. Maximum sustained winds at 105. This makes it a Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. This is the strongest point that Hurricane Jeanne has been since its birth 10 days ago. Movement now west at 6 miles per hour, so slowly making that westward turn. And we've been talking about that turn over the last week now. When is it going to happen? And made that turn overnight. The pressure at 966 millibars, a little over 650 miles away from South Florida and from the Bahamas, about 465 miles from the Great Abaco Island, which is just east of Freeport. Let's get a look at Storm Scan, give you a better picture of its forecasted path. You can see the cone as we start to see it make that westward turn. By Friday evening, stronger Category 3 storm at 115 miles per hour. And if we look off Saturday into Sunday, look who's within that cone. We've got South Florida, Lee counties, we've got Miami-Dade, Broward, portions of Palm County, all within this cone. And it looks like for the next several days, depending on this forecast track, whether or not it shifts, as well as the steering currents, we could very well see some landfall, the eye of the system making landfall somewhere in Florida or maybe even Georgia at this point. Let's get a look at water vapor, giving you a better look at the steering currents expected over the next 24 to 48 hours. Right now, we're under a ridge of high pressure. You're seeing beautiful conditions around the area today, but that ridge is going to sit right on top of Jeanne. And as it does so, Jeanne is going to continue to make that slow motion toward the west. But once that ridge falls off and starts to weaken, this system is going to make a right-hand turn somewhere, a northwest turn. Whether it's toward Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas, that is still unknown at this point. It's going to take, the next couple of days to watch Jeanne as it starts to meander toward the west, whether or not that ridge is going to be sufficient enough, strong enough to hold it down toward the south, or as if it clears out early enough, we could see this making a westward turn towards central or north Florida, or even Georgia. But if that ridge hangs on toward the weekend, this could very well direct it toward the southern or central coastline of Florida. So again, keeping a close eye on this, still looking at a wide margin of error as far as this expected landfall. We're still fairly early in the game right now, so right now is your time to just watch and monitor with us, and also stay tuned to later editions to 7. We'll take a look at the rest of your forecast.
Español earlier this week, and now it is making a play for the southeast coast of the United States. System is looking a little more decrepit than earlier today. The cloud tops have warmed up just a bit. Eye walls becoming a little more ragged. In fact, we think it may be causing some upwelling or some churning of the ocean, bringing some cooler sea surface temperatures up to the surface. That is not helping this system to strengthen, which is good news to us. Unfortunately, as it continues to make a play for the west towards the Bahamas, the sea surface temperatures are slightly warmer, and perhaps the system will intensify again. And now right now it is a Category 2 hurricane as of 11 a.m. It's 660 miles east of Miami, Florida. Winds of 105. That is up 5 miles an hour from 8 a.m. Gusts are up to 125, and the pressure is currently 966 millibars. This system, unfortunately, riding the southern periphery of the ridge of high pressure located just to the north of it. That means that it's going to head straight west. Now, we thought initially that this ridge was going to kick out a little sooner, but now it appears that it's going to stay there for a while longer. And again, as we move into portions of warmer water here in the Atlantic, it is going to be possible that we could see a Category 3 hurricane from Jeanne here. It's going to continue to play itself westward until it hits the western side of that ridge, and then it should start to scoot up to the north. Unfortunately, we are in the cone of error for now. The Keys all the way up to portions of the Carolinas. That is a wide area, folks, but unfortunately, we are included in the threat from this system. As it heads up to the north, it's going to dissipate just a little bit down to a Category 1 and then into a tropical storm. So we will continue to track Jeanne for you. Thankfully, good news. Carl and Lisa will not affect us. Carl is currently moving up to the north-northeast at 30 miles an hour and will not affect land at any point. As we head out to Lisa as well, this system will not affect land either. It is currently heading to the west-southwest at 5 and is no threat to land or life. So, Diane, we're really watching Jeanne with the exception of that. Back here at home, conditions look good in South Florida for today. Of course, our
just make out the center of the storm right now, regenerated in the Gulf of Mexico. Really yucky weather through New Orleans today. And believe it or not, it's just almost hideous to think that Ivan could bring more rain into Alabama. All right, it's about 600 miles off of our coast for Jeanne, 450 or so.
So that's why the winds have not increased as of the 5 o'clock advisory. It has moved more west-northwest
in the last few hours at 8 miles per hour. But notice these clouds to the north, they're pushing southward. There's a huge area of high pressure that's actually north of where I just drew it. That's going to be building in over the system, and that will start moving it more to the west and maybe even a little bit south of due west for a time before that eventual turn. And the question is, when's that turn going to occur? But this is now forecast to become a major hurricane. If it does, it'll be the 6th out of 7 this season. Here is the latest coordinates in the storm track from the National Hurricane Center on StormScan, and we're looking at a 105-mile-an-hour system now. But notice this little bit of a bend here in the cone, and then it goes more to the northwest in time. But obviously, as you well know, we can put this hurricane symbol anywhere within this cone, especially in the 3-day period. But with all that said, this weekend is going to tell the story because it's only 600 plus miles away, and as it moves to the west, it could actually increase in forward speed as that high strengthens to the north. So it is forecast to become a Category 3 storm, and increase in intensity overnight Friday night to a 120-mile-an-hour system and be off the Florida coast in the northwest Bahamas sometime Saturday afternoon. Then the question is, which part of South or Central or North Florida will it go, or will it bypass Florida? And
by Saturday afternoon, the center will be somewhere here in the northwestern Bahamas. By the way, we do still have the hurricane watch up for the northwest Bahamas at this point in time, and a tropical storm watch up for the central Bahamas. And by Saturday afternoon, we think that there's a good chance that we'll have tropical storm force winds here somewhere on the southeast or east central coast of Florida. That means that we would likely have a hurricane warning in place by tomorrow afternoon, and most likely a hurricane watch will go in place sometime on Friday morning. We just really want people in Florida to know the possibilities here. No one can tell you at this stage of the game whether the track will actually come right over the peninsula or a little bit to the east or a little bit even more to the west of the official track there.
That was Max Mayfield just a short time ago. Latest coordinates 25,970.3. Again, west-northwest at 8, 615 to the east of Miami. Watch is now out for the northwest Bahamas. As Max said, maybe very late tonight or early in the morning tomorrow we'll get a watch for South Florida. But basically it's a big ridge of high pressure, and it's how...
Pensando en este huracán, y luego tan contento el viernes cuando pasó por el área del norte de la Española y prácticamente se disipó. Pudimos descansar en el fin de semana, pero lo que se ha venido materializando durante esta semana es desafortunadamente un patrón sumamente preocupante en cuanto a la costa este de la Florida se refiere. Un intensísimo anticiclón o zona de alta presión sumamente fuerte localizado en la parte este de los Estados Unidos y prácticamente anclado ahí. Eso es lo que detuvo en primera instancia a Jeanne. Jeanne ha dado la vuelta y ahora se está dirigiendo prácticamente hacia el oeste para pasar o acercarse muy cerca a las Bahamas, donde ya se emitieron las vigilancias de huracán. Esto incluye las Bahamas más occidentales, o sea, ahora falta la Florida para esa vigilancia de huracán que seguramente ya mañana la tendremos en partes de la costa floridana. ¿A dónde va a ir? Todo dependerá de qué tan fuerte esté este sistema de alta presión, si puede entonces girar un poquitito hacia arriba para llegar a algún punto de la costa, digamos, central de la parte este de la Florida, en algún lugar entre Cabo Cañaveral, digamos, o Melbourne, o desafortunadamente la zona cercana a Port St. Lucie, ustedes con alta probabilidad de que este ciclón los impacte de alguna forma u otra, o si este anticiclón se queda fuerte y no permite que el huracán vire hacia el norte, entonces estamos hablando de los condados del sur de la Florida, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, tal vez. Así que, por lo tanto, el riesgo para la Florida está definitivamente en aumento esta tarde. Aquí está ese gran sistema de alta presión, es sumamente intenso y uno de los problemas que estamos teniendo es que no se está moviendo. Y si esto no acaba de moverse para entrar al área del Atlántico, digamos, occidental, en vez de quedarse cerca de la parte este de los Estados Unidos, si no se mueve, no va a permitir que esto suba. Ahora, cada décima de grado que suba ayuda, por lo menos aquí en el sur de la Florida. Esta es la proyección del Centro Nacional de Huracanes. Como ven, da la vuelta completa, entonces se dirige hacia el oeste, pasa por los mismos lugares, las mismas zonas de las Bahamas donde pasó Frances y, según el Centro de Huracanes, se dirigiría a los mismos condados que fueron impactados por Frances hace 2 o 3 semanas. Eso traería condiciones de tormenta tropical a los condados Broward y Miami-Dade. pero puede estar en cualquier punto, desde la punta sur de la península hasta más al norte, cerca del área de Cabo Cañaveral. Sencillamente en estos momentos no se puede predecir cuál de esos puntos será. Cualquier, como dije, cualquier décima de grado que ganemos durante el día de hoy va a ser bueno. Anoche estaba en 25.9, más bien 25.6 estaba anoche. Ahora está en 25.9, o sea que ha subido 3 décimas de grado. 25.9 es más o menos a la altura de la línea divisoria entre los condados Miami-Dade y Broward. O sea que si fuera a moverse directamente hacia el oeste, ahí llegaría. Claro, por el momento se mueve hacia el oeste-noroeste, esperándose que gire más directamente hacia el oeste durante la noche de hoy o durante el día de mañana. El huracán con vientos de 105 millas por hora, muy bien desarrollado como lo ven ahí en pantalla, y sencillamente lo vamos a tener que vigilar muy de cerca. Tengo mucho más de esto en mi segmento del tiempo. Aunque se pueda fortalecer por la temperatura del mar, los vientos cortantes no ayudarían a Jeanne. Mientras tanto, las temperaturas del aire en el sur de la Florida cerca de 85 grados, precisamente en el exterior o en la periferia de Jeanne. Ahí ven algunas de las nubes de Jeanne ya empezando a llegar al área de las Islas Bahamas. Bueno, tenemos a Iván en el área del Golfo de México. Llegó a tener vientos de 60 millas por hora durante el día de hoy, pero afortunadamente justo antes de tocar tierra, que es a esta hora básicamente, ha perdido fuerza, tiene vientos de 45 millas por hora, pero bastante lluvia. Jeanne, pues ya les dije, nos preocupa un poco su trayectoria. Sabemos que debe ser un ciclón que se dirija a la Florida antes de dar algún giro hacia el norte. Por acá anda Carl, bien distante sobre el mar, tuvo vientos de 120 millas por hora, otro de estos huracanes categoría 3, 4, 5. Y a Lisa, muy desorganizada. Lisa no representa peligro para ninguna zona poblada, con vientos de solo 45 millas por hora. Pero 105 millas por hora es el viento de Jeanne, que hoy se presenta más o mejor estructurada que durante el día de ayer. Para que tengan una perspectiva, esto está como a 600 millas de la costa todavía. Durante el día de hoy como que tuvo una tendencia a subir un poquito. Repito, cualquier décima de grado que suba ayuda a las comunidades del sur de la Florida, pero no así ustedes que nos estén viendo, por ejemplo, en el área de Port St. Lucie, pues no necesariamente para ustedes. Fíjense que en la última una o dos imágenes vuelve a girar hacia el oeste y estará así.
Along the steering currents on the bottom part of the high. Now, as the high weakens, which will happen, and the trough will drop in.
And I mentioned we are under a hurricane watch this afternoon. Again, from Florida City all the way up into St. Augustine. This was rendered earlier this morning by the National Hurricane Center. Hurricane warnings have been posted for the northwestern Bahamas, and tropical storm warnings still in effect for the central Bahamas. What that watch means is that hurricane conditions are possible over the next 36 hours. And if you are in a warning, northwestern Bahamas in a warning, 24 hours or less at this point now, 24 hours or less until hurricane conditions are being felt. Here are the latest coordinates from the National Hurricane Center. 26-2 north, 72 for west, winds at 100 miles per hour. This is a Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, and it is moving west at 9, pressure at 969 millibars, 480 miles now east of South Florida. Let's get a look at the latest imagery. You can see here that the storm system is starting to get more developed. It's becoming a little more compact within the central dense overcast. You can see there the magentas and the reds, deep convection there, thunderstorm activity, those clouds building. Notice the outflow of the system extending already in the northwestern Bahamas, as well as a few of those outer fringes in through South Florida. Again, very strong surf conditions, dangerous surf conditions. Advised not to be out along the beaches. Again, there is a small craft advisory as well for the boaters. Notice the inflow, very healthy as well. This system will continue to track westward at this point, and at the last minute expected to make a northwest turn. Here's a look at the latest on StormScan, giving you a better idea of its projected path. You can see we are dealing with an uncertainty anywhere from the Atlantic up toward the panhandle of where this storm is going to make that right-hand turn. At some point, it is going to make a northwest turn anywhere toward the southern tip of Florida or in through northern Florida up into Georgia or even in the mid-Atlantic region. At this point, that is still uncertain. That is the question that forecasters as well as meteorologists at the National Hurricane Center are going to try to figure out to give you a more definitive answer over the next 12 to 24 hours. At this point, this is the forecast path from the National Hurricane Center. 110 miles per hour winds expected by landfall, so it could even strengthen to nearing Category 3 strength. At this point, Category 2 by Sunday morning. Jeanne's latest movement, as we take a look at the steering currents over the next 24 hours, we're looking at an area of high pressure that could possibly weaken. And if it does so, it is going to allow the gates to open for Jeanne to make that right-hand turn or move toward the north-northwest. If it doesn't, that high doesn't weaken and it continues to push southeast, then those of us in South Florida will be in within that.
The inner eye wall is kind of losing its intensity. The outer eye wall is the stronger eye wall, and the plane found a 94-knot wind in the outer eye wall as the pressure is dropping. It's much more symmetrical, much more thunderstorms around it today than it had yesterday, and the reason for that is, A, there's no shear, B, it's finally not what's called upwelling, the cooler waters underneath it. So now, instead of having water temp
de traslación, esto va a ocurrir mucho más rápido. Usted va a tener que estar listo con mucha mayor antelación ante la inminencia de este huracán que estaría llegando a la costa con esa velocidad. Vean que por el momento el ojo del ciclón trata de quedar un poco mejor definido, está pasando sobre aguas ahora más cálidas y por eso se espera que se vaya fortaleciendo. Para Miami y el condado Broward, importante ver cómo este ojo pasa en relación a estas islas. Esta es Abaco, esta es Gran Bahama. Si pasa al norte de las islas o sobre el norte de las islas, la situación para Miami-Dade y Broward va a ser mucho más favorable. Pero si de momento ustedes ven que esto baja un poquitito y pasa por el sur de Abaco y le pasa por al sur a Gran Bahama, entonces la situación para Miami-Dade y Broward sería más peligrosa. No estoy anticipando que haga eso el ciclón. Me siento mejor hoy de lo que me sentía ayer, especialmente considerando que ya está en 26.4, repito, casi 1 grado de latitud encima de la latitud de Miami. Cuando llegue a 27 respiraremos aún mucho mejor en Miami y en Broward. Más al norte, sin embargo, Palm Beach y otros condados más al norte, ustedes ya saben que la situación es de sumo riesgo para ustedes con este huracán acercándose. Ya el aviso de huracán no solamente comprende las Bahamas, pero también comprende toda la costa floridana, desde San Agustín, dando a la cobertura. Pero recuerden lo que les había comentado, esta alta presión alejándose de la costa, dependiendo de su intensidad y su posición, así entonces se comportaría el huracán mientras estuviese acercando a la costa. Y me parece que esta zona de alta presión no va a ser suficientemente fuerte para causar que el huracán siga recto hacia el extremo sur de la Florida. Me parece más probable que sea esto lo que haga que se dirija a la parte sur central de la Florida, en algún lugar entre Palm Beach y el área de Cabo Cañaveral, tocando tierra, como dije, en la madrugada del domingo.
Is pretty much a consensus of all the models that takes it in something like this. We've learned not to focus on that line, so we want to look at this cone of uncertainty. And at 5 p.m. we have issued a hurricane warning that goes from Florida City all the way up to St. Augustine on the Florida East Coast. We also still have the hurricane warning in effect for the northwestern Bahamas and a tropical storm warning for the central Bahamas. The hurricane watch is now issued from St. Augustine up to Altamaha Sound, Georgia. And then we have a tropical storm watch for the middle and upper Florida Keys and around the Florida Peninsula on the west coast, north of Tampa to Ancoat Key. We want to talk about the hazards of the hurricane. We're forecasting 4 to 8 feet of storm surge in the northwestern Bahamas. By the time it gets to Florida, we're likely forecasting 4 to 6 feet of storm surge near and to the north of where the center crosses the Florida coast, with large and very dangerous battering waves on top of that. Again, the winds should be near Category 3 intensity at that time, along with 5 to 10 inches of rain. People in the watch and warning areas need to listen very carefully to the advice of their local officials. This is Max Mayfield reporting from the National Hurricane Center in Miami.
That was Max Mayfield, again, talking about this storm system, which is now moving over warmer water. This is the water vapor loop, and notice this clockwise flow here, this huge area of high pressure with the center.
I'm feeling a little bit better about Miami-Dade, Broward County, and the Keys now than I was 24 hours ago, but by the same token, I want to emphasize that this hurricane is 400 miles away, and that a lot of things can happen with a hurricane.
It's never really easy, and it's particularly tricky here. We're talking about a high-pressure area and weaknesses up near Maryland in the Delmarva Peninsula. Can you explain what that's about?
Well, you know, it's a deep layer of steering current from the surface to the top of the hurricane, maybe 60,000 feet that steers this. It's very complex, and you really have to know the river of air that, you know, is all around this hurricane. But the dominant feature that is steering this right now is that high-pressure system well up to the north off the Delmarva. and how that changes with time will impact how Jeanne gets steered.
Okay, exactly where are the main steering currents? Are they close to the surface? Are they mid-levels of the atmosphere? Are they upper levels of the atmosphere? Which are the ones that grab a hold of it?
It's throughout the whole deep layer of mean, from the surface to the very top of the hurricane. It's that entire layer that steers the hurricane, not the surface, not the high levels, not the mid-level. It's that deep layer of mean that does the steering.
All right, let's talk about intensity. I know this is a real problematic area for the National Hurricane Center, but now the latest thinking is perhaps it may grow to Category 3 before landfall.
Right, and we've always acknowledged our limitations with intensity forecasting, but I think everybody would agree that this has a well-defined outflow pattern right now. We have one of the NOAA research airplanes flying in the storm right now, and they just a few minutes ago sent in a report right at 100 miles per hour again on the surface from one of the new instruments on board that plane. So, you know, we've got a Category 2 hurricane right now. As it gets closer to the coast, it will be moving over somewhat warmer water temperature, and, you know, that's higher octane fuel, and we really think that there's a chance that it could become a Category 3 hurricane.
All right, now I know you are loath to do this, but I'll make the assumption for you that the storm stays more or less in the center of the cone of error here, the path. What would the effects be in South Florida, in Broward and Miami-Dade County?
If we had a perfect forecast, you know, with the center, you know, coming onshore here just a little bit north of Palm Beach, we'd probably have tropical storm conditions here in Miami-Dade County. But we, you know, just can remember back to 1992, we had the forecast of Andrew at one time up in Palm Beach County, and it, you know, came down right over us. So, and then of course Charlie from the middle of August there moved a little bit to the right there. So we don't want to bet the farm, and we sure don't want to bet anybody's life on a perfect forecast.
Thank you, Max. Certainly, this is another one of these hair-pulling out storms. We've had too many of these already. Thank you very much.
A ver, en todo esto, pues una de ellas es el hecho de que este huracán le ha costado trabajo estructurarse, ¿no? O sea, ayer pasó por un mal momento, especialmente anoche, veíamos como el huracán perdía un poco de su estructura. Que conste que los vientos solamente disminuyeron de 105 a 100 millas por hora. Incluso hoy ha estado tratando de hacer un comeback, ¿no? Tratando de fortalecerse de nuevo. Y la presión central está bajando, que es indicativo que pronto pudiera aumentar el viento. Pero cuando uno mira a este huracán, no lo ve como un clásico ciclón de estos sumamente intensos que pueden arrasar con un área. Se ve pues un poco desorganizado. Claro, hay que recordar que esto va a pasar sobre aguas más cálidas. Precisamente tengo una imagen de la temperatura del mar, o sea, una imagen de lo que muestra el centro del huracán en el radar. Lo van a ver con la temperatura del mar. A ver si nos pueden ayudar con esa imagen. Ahí está. Con las temperaturas cerca del centro del huracán, acá en 83 grados. Un poco más al oeste, donde estaría pasando 84. Aquí cerca de Abaco y de Gran Bahama, 84 grados y medio, y 85 grados en la parte occidental de la isla Gran Bahama. Así que, aunque se ve desorganizado en estos momentos, es posible que el huracán cobre fuerzas mientras se mueve sobre las aguas más cálidas, mientras se va acercando a la Florida, y por eso el riesgo de que se convierta en un ciclón de categoría 3. Y recuerden mi conversación con Lixion Ávila hace escasos minutos. O sea, ya ellos lo único que ven en términos de los factores que pueden afectar el fortalecimiento o el debilitamiento de Jeanne, es la temperatura del mar. Ya piensan que no habrá vientos cortantes en los niveles superiores de la atmósfera que pudiesen, digamos, decapitar a la tormenta. Puse aquí en esta imagen, ¿no?, para que puedan ver exactamente a qué hora se espera en cada lugar. Esto, recuerden, es la proyección oficial del Centro Nacional de Huracanes, por la cual se deja llevar todas las agencias de gobierno y prácticamente todo el mundo, ¿no?, en términos de hacia dónde pudiese moverse el huracán en las próximas horas. Ya para mañana a las...
A little bit in size, the eye seems to be coming together a little bit better, and it is moving in a westerly direction. This is the past 24-hour period, and it has gone from that line, which is 70, to that line there, which is 75 degrees west longitude. So it has accelerated its forward motion, and it also has filled in quite a bit on the bottom here with these reds, meaning colder cloud tops, and that means stronger thunderstorms. And it is a sign that the storm is very healthy indeed, and as you use the word formidable, I think we could call it that. There is now the center opening up. The center of circulation was very difficult to find earlier, but now it is right about to the upper right-hand side of that circle. And you can see as the outer bands here are now moving over the Bahamas, the rain is just about ready to move into the Abaco area and into Grand Bahama and also Eleuthera. As of 8 o'clock tonight, this was the position of the storm. Now, as we go into the forecast period, it's going to be apparent how far west this storm is going to go before it turns to the north. You're looking at Abaco Island right there, and there's Grand Bahama, and the forecast there is tomorrow afternoon, and the orange color indicates a Category 2 storm on the Safford-Simpson scale. Then a turn to the north is supposed to initiate sometime tomorrow afternoon, so it's going to come very close before it begins to turn away by late tomorrow evening and early Sunday morning. Then the storm will be moving up the state as a hurricane and then finally a tropical storm. Now, obviously, this puts us very, very close to the possibility of the storm not turning north before it has a chance to move close enough to us. It could turn north before, it could wait, and that's the dilemma we are in right here. So, as of 8 o'clock tonight, the latest numbers from the Hurricane Center put it at 26.5 north and 74.3 west. That's 370 miles to the east of Miami-Fort Lauderdale with 100-mile-an-hour winds and gusting up to about 120 as of this time, mainly north and west of the center. The movement is west at about 12 miles per hour, rounded down to 10 on our chart here, and 28.47 is the barometric pressure. The hurricane wind field, tropical storm force winds extend out at least to another little area to the north that is expected to kind of elongate southwest and northeast, and if it does and weaken a little bit, that would take Jeanne and move Jeanne to the north a little sooner. If the ridge stays in place, then Jeanne would stay in place in a westerly track and move north a little bit later. And the computer models, the latest model package in from the various guidance models that we have indicate the storm coming very close to us down here before that turn takes place. Now, the latest model runs that we have are the purple one and the orange one. The other ones here are a little bit older, but not much. So if this is true, if they go somewhere where the forecast models say it's going to go, then we would be on the weak side of the storm and we'd be okay. But anything farther to the south than, say, that purple model, and we would be in the...
And the tropical storm force winds now encroaching on the Abacos and eventually Grand Bahama Island. So with this in mind, I posed these questions to Max Mayfield. I first asked him just a short while ago if the system was getting better organized. Here's Max. Max, it appears as though Jeanne is getting better organized.
Well, it sure looks like that. In the satellite imagery, we'll have another airplane out there close to 11 o'clock. You know, the pressure really hadn't changed much during the day, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Everything we see, you know, the upper level environment is favorable. It's moving over warmer water. I just don't see why this should not go ahead and strengthen.
And Max, what do you think about the very large eye that's developed over the last few hours?
Well, it's certainly becoming distinct, and you know, usually when you have a large diameter eye, you don't see any rapid changes in intensity, so that's probably good news there. But even if, you know, it's a solid Category 2 now, if it becomes a Category 3, that's capable of causing major damage.
And Max, the computer models, the latest ones, have kind of bent a little bit further to the left. Will there be an adjustment of the track at 11 o'clock at all?
Well, you know, actually we've kind of been on the left side of most of the models now, so I think the track is really not going to change very much. We feel pretty good about the track. It is going to turn to the north. Again, it's still a matter of exactly when that turn to the north occurs.
Max, I got something to run by you. Debbie in 2000 went over Hispaniola, completely dissipated. This one went over Hispaniola, caused a calamity in Haiti. The center survived. This thing is a fighter, so based on that, wouldn't you think that it would come back to possibly be a major hurricane?
Well, sure. Now, Debbie was a very marginal Category 1 hurricane, and it really hugged the coast there for, you know, a long enough time. Plus, the shear contributed to that, to the demise of Debbie. But anyway, this is what we're dealing with now, and as you say, it is becoming better defined, at least the central features there. And I really think people do need to be preparing for a Category 3 hurricane.
And Max, what do you tell the folks here in South Florida tonight?
They're under hurricane warning. There are some evacuations that are supposed to start taking place tomorrow morning, both in Miami-Dade and Broward County. And actually, we've been talking to all the counties up the whole Florida East Coast. And I think people need to get up tomorrow morning and do exactly what the local officials tell them to do.
Good words. Thanks, Max. And here's the water vapor loop, and we're looking at the hurricane moving to the west. Again, the eye becoming very visible here. as it gets better organized. And notice how the hurricane is pushing the browns away. But this brown area nosing down is part of a huge area of high pressure off the mid-Atlantic coast. And it's going to be a very close call as to how fast this moves and how close it gets to the coast before the high would move and weaken and allow for that recurvature. Plus, look at this spin in the central Gulf and look at the arc of these clouds. They're actually moving from southeast to north, then to northeast. So based on this, it looks like the high pressure may be stronger than anticipated, which would allow that more westerly motion. This is going to come awfully close to the Florida East Coast, if not come a...
Punto de vista del ciclón, ¿no? En el sentido de que el aire seco no lo ayuda. La temperatura del mar sí lo va a ayudar a fortalecerse, pero el aire seco no lo ayudaría y ojalá que prevalezca el aire seco y no la temperatura del mar en todo esto, ¿no? Ahí está el rumbo del huracán. Directo hacia el oeste para los efectos, para acercarse al norte tal vez de la isla Abaco y luego muy cerca del área de Gran Bahama. Recuerden lo que les había comentado de todo esto en cuanto a Miami-Dade y Broward se refiere, y esto es específicamente para estos subcondados del extremo sur de la Florida. Si este ciclón pasa encima de Abaco o digamos en la parte norte de Abaco y encima de Gran Bahama o justo al norte, eso significa que Miami-Dade y Broward no va a tener que lidiar con grandes problemas de este huracán y sencillamente tendremos una situación similar a la de Frances, donde hubo algunas ráfagas de viento y par de aguaceros, pero nada demasiado devastador. Ahora, si pasara al sur, si pasara, digamos, sobre el sur de Abaco o al sur del condado no, de la isla de Gran Bahama, si pasase al sur, entonces tendríamos un problema mucho más serio para Broward y Miami-Dade. Pero yo creo que queda bastante claro que por lo menos la tendencia actual es de que este huracán se está moviendo hacia la parte norte de Abaco y Gran Bahama, y de ahí entonces veremos o esperaremos la famosa curva que...
Intensity of the storm, can it?
Well, it can. We have a lot of hurricanes that move over the Gulf Stream without strengthening, but this one has such a well-defined upper level outflow. And as you say, high octane fuel that it's about to go over, that we really don't see any reason for it not to go ahead and strengthen and could very well become a major hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane.
This is almost reminding me a little bit of a Hurricane Floyd. We have this hurricane that is still moving in an almost, now Floyd was moving in from the southeast, but this storm is moving due west, and we're saying, is this going to turn?
It's going to turn, Roland. We're just not absolutely sure if it's going to turn after it hits the peninsula or a little bit to the east of the peninsula, and that's why we have the hurricane warning extending all the way down here through Miami-Dade County. But it will turn eventually. The difficult thing is not just the track, but also the wind radii. That makes a big, big difference. And if we had a perfect forecast, we would probably have the hurricane force winds in red here, primarily from Palm Beach up through Brevard County, with the tropical storm force winds in blue here, but just a little bit to the south, and everything changes, brings those hurricane force winds down here.
Does the fact that the hurricane force wind field has increased significantly? They were 40 miles from the center. Now the hurricane force winds extend outward over 70 miles from the center of circulation.
Right. That's, we've got a pretty good feel on that now. We've had aircraft out there, both the NOAA and Air Force planes, and we're also getting some stronger winds in from the Air Force plane that just got out there, making us think that it is indeed on its way to becoming a major hurricane.
Max, do you think that we're going to have an opportunity in the morning to still get out and put up shutters?
I think so. The track still looks good. The storm force winds will likely be on the southeast coast, tomorrow afternoon. So, people need to wake up, and if, they're in one of these evacuation zones, they really need to heed the advice of the local officials.
Yeah, I would say sometime by late tomorrow afternoon is when things are going to start going downhill.
Right, and of course that depends exactly on the track there, on what part of the peninsula goes downhill.
All right, Max Mayfield, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time. Well, let's go ahead and bring you up to speed here with the top of the hour update on Hurricane Jeanne then, folks. And we're not seeing much of a turn right now. In fact, the hurricane is heading in a due west direction at this point. Here's Abaco Island, here's Grand Bahama Island. And this hurricane looks very large, it looks very ominous, and what we're seeing is, of course, that the wind field is expanding, as I was mentioning before, and the hurricane is looking very impressive on the satellite imagery. Now, what the Hurricane Center was talking about, what they mentioned in their discussion tonight as well, is that the outflow is very well established in all...
So we think the winds may finally be catching up with the pressure, and and we still feel like there's a very good chance that this could become a Category 3 hurricane.
Now, we were just showing you the water temperature profile a moment ago, and it looks like the hurricane is just now beginning to approach the warmer water, so it's going to have
and
the fuel.
that upper level environment is so favorable, and you know, in the water vapor imagery you can see an upper level low. It looks like it's cutting off here over eastern Cuba. That's going to enhance the outflow on the south side, so we really don't see why this should not go ahead and strengthen.
All right, let's talk about what this wind field means for Miami-Dade and Broward County. As we've been saying here, we're not expecting some sort of a catastrophic direct hit here by any means, but Hurricane Francis, more than Hurricane Francis, how would you compare? Because everyone certainly can relate to Hurricane Francis.
Yeah, well, it's actually becoming very similar now. The fact that the size has indeed increased, and as you say, we're not expecting a catastrophic hit down here in the southeast coastline, but if we had a perfect forecast, the hurricane force winds would likely extend from Palm Beach up through Brevard County on the coast, and then inland at least halfway across the peninsula, and with tropical storm force winds down here in Miami-Dade, Broward County. We know we're not going to have a perfect forecast. If that track does not start shifting to the north tomorrow afternoon, that whole envelope there is going to shift down to the south.
And what we had in Broward County was what? Hurricane force gusts, right, in Francis? Is that their best estimate?
And that could still happen very, very easily here.
Right, so we've been trying to compare this to Hurricane Francis, and I think that looks like a pretty good comparison. I just was talking briefly before we came to you about the high-rise issue, and especially about our folks in Boca, North Broward, could very well have very strong winds at the higher levels of those buildings.
That's right. By the time you get up 30 stories or so in those high rises, you could easily have one category stronger than you have down on the surface. So, you know, even if you have a Category 2 hurricane on the surface down here, you could have a major hurricane aloft.
Max, we talked earlier about the NOAA jet that went out and sampled the atmosphere to the north. Did it find anything unexpected? Did it find the high weaker, stronger, and anything, or you just don't have that information yet?
Brian, there's so much information coming back. You know, we get pressure, temperature, humidity, and wind from 43,000 feet all the way down to the surface. We get that every half a second. You can't even begin to look at that, but that data is getting into the computer models that will be run here shortly after midnight.
All right, so that'll all be used in the 5 a.m. forecast. So.
Correct.
Obviously, as Mayor Pinellas said a little while ago, they're going to look at 5 a.m. and evaluate the evacuation orders and so forth. So that's going to be a critical forecast.
That's right, and you know, if we have a good forecast, the main impact will be to the north, but we just can't guarantee that yet.
And by everything we know, this is going to be a very bad, probably worse than Hurricane Francis, near and where the north of where it comes ashore.
And if it does strengthen to a Category 3, you know, that Fort Pierce area up there, Fort Pierce, Vero Beach, they haven't had a Category 3 hurricane since 1933. So no one, you know, remembers has released and risk.
For us down here, that our encounter with Jeanne, if and only if it goes on that forecast track, the so-called perfect forecast, we will have a near miss again with these strong hurricane force winds. Boy, there isn't anything.
It's estimated at 105 miles an hour. It's still a Category 2 hurricane, but that is up from 11 o'clock where it was estimated at 100 miles an hour. Also, take a look at this. The movement now still to the west, but at 14 miles an hour. That speed has increased some. Remember, the last advisory was up at 12 miles an hour, and through much of the day today, we saw Jeanne moving at a rate of about 8 miles an hour. This also has been expected. We did expect for Jeanne to kind of quicken its pace now as we go into tomorrow, but this number once again indicating that trend up from 12 miles per hour to the west at 11 o'clock to 14 miles an hour. Estimated minimum central pressure is 962 millibars. Remember, the lower the number, typically the stronger the storm, and it has made progress. Now it's about 270 miles east of Lake Worth as of 11 o'clock.
Hurricane. And so the farther north it goes, the better it is for us because that will pull those strong winds away from us. But at this point, it looks like, as I said, we're going to have some rough weather here in South Florida. Looks inevitable at this point.
Those light showers that are racing from northeast to southwest or north to south on this strong flow between the high to the north and the hurricane off to our east. But this area, where you see all these yellows and even the golds in here, those have very strong winds, up to 40 to 60 miles per hour, maybe even some tornadoes in these bands as they come on shore, even though it's not the right front quadrant. You have to always be aware of that when these feeder bands and the outer fringes of the hurricane start you know, pummeling westward and toward you. So we'll have to watch that as well, and that should be making it onshore in the next hour or two. The long-range radar for the whole state out to the Bahamas, there is the Great Abaco, and there are the Abacos. There's the center of circulation, and once that gets closer to us, we'll be able to track the exact motion, and right now it appears as though that westerly motion hasn't changed, and again, there will be wobbles, but with at least Doppler radar, we won't be misled by the cloud representation of infrared satellite imagery. We can have a better fix on the fringes of the hurricane, and the feeder band's rotating in a clockwise circulation. The outflow is excellent now in all quadrants, and the bad thing about this, it's becoming more symmetrical, where the central dense overcast is, you know, it's better now on the north side than it was earlier, and the eye of the storm is within now that central dense overcast. It's becoming more symmetrical, which implies a possible intensification. So we are looking at 26.5 north, and this is crucial now because Fort Lauderdale's 26.1, Miami's 25.5. This has not deviated. If this were to make a straight line westward, we're talking about southern. The question is, where will it be in relation to Freeport? Will it be north or south? But the core is going to go over Grand Bahama Island. And if this track to the west continues, then we're talking about a landfall somewhere in southern or south central Palm Beach County. Any deviation to the south of this or north of this would dramatically affect the weather here in South Florida. So rush to completion any plans that you may have. I know a lot of you are hurricane weary, so are all of we. From EOC on down the line, Hurricane Center, television people, radio people, everybody. But this is the fourth one, and this is the most viable threat now to
here. And the core extends further to the south and the east than typically do with hurricanes. Usually we see that on the right side of circulation, and we can see this entire energy shift to the right-hand side as it gets closer to making landfall. That's something we'll have to watch. Is right now the south side, the left side of the storm, left side of circulation on, again, the south side is pretty wet right now. And that means some widespread showers and thunderstorms for Broward, Dade County on down into the Keys as we head through tonight and into tomorrow as this hurricane gets close to making landfall later on tonight. The eye of the hurricane has been over Marsh Harbor for a little while now getting pounded again on the eastern side. Remember, with satellites, they come from a satellite in orbit that's 36,000 feet above the surface, and it shoots down at an angle. It finds the hurricane. So right now, the GOES satellite's sitting out and shooting down at the eye, and it's displacing it just a bit. The eye is actually further over the island around Great Abaco, right in this general vicinity, but the satellite is what we call parallax. It makes the image appear a little offset from what it is, but on the radar imagery, we can really see where that eye is. And again, it's a little further on off towards the east. The latest numbers, this is the 8 o'clock intermediate advisory. If you're tracking at home, these are the latest coordinates. 26.5 north, 77 even west, 200 miles to the east-northeast of the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. Winds now still sustained 105, gusting up to 125. The winds, again, it doesn't update the gusts on the intermediate advisories, but gusting 125 to 130. Pressure down 1. This storm is intense.
Better organized.
Yes, and as you said, from the reconnaissance aircraft data, it looks that way too. We haven't seen the winds yet that support from the aircraft that support bringing the intensity up, but you're right, the pressure's falling, and perhaps the winds will respond in the next few hours.
Ed, model data shifting a little bit to the left. Is the thinking there that there could be a shift to the left of the cone at 11 o'clock?
If there is, it won't be much. And the problem, of course, is that the hurricane's pretty much following the track, and it's also following the forecast for intensification that we've been talking about for a while. So southeast Florida and then the east central part of Florida is going to have a rough 24 hours.
You know, we talked about this coming probably the closest one could have ever come to us before the curvature. Floyd curved obviously a lot farther east in 1999. In your mind, do you think this thing could come like almost right up to the coast before that turn to the northwest?
Well, it may even cross the coast before the turn, and either way now, it's going to be close enough that we're almost assured of hurricane conditions, say in Palm Beach County, the possibility of that for Broward and for Miami-Dade, and tropical storm conditions for all three counties.
Yeah, but that was my question. If it continues westerly, though, before the turn, then on this latitude, we're talking around Boca Raton. We're talking southern Palm Beach County.
Yeah, that's right. So then we would have hurricane force winds extending into Broward County and maybe the northern part of Miami-Dade. And that's why we have a hurricane warning up now, because we expect those conditions are going to be occurring. And as we've been saying, folks have just a few hours left to complete their preparations.
Okay, on your radar picture, it does appear that that westward motion is continuing. Is that how you guys are seeing it too?
That's right. Pretty much due west, a couple wobbles, as you said.
Right.
I think it's going to continue to do that for the next 12 hours or so, and then maybe start to shift that towards northwest, but by then it's already going to be near land.
Yeah, 12 hours times 14 miles an hour brings it right on the coast, or very close to us, right?
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Dr. Ed Rappaport. Obviously a situation we have to follow very closely today. And again, this is the hurricane we're talking about, getting better organized, although the magenta colors, which have wrapped around, breaking up a little bit, but that doesn't mean anything at this point. The organization is there. The situation is such that the hurricane is growing in size. Here's Doppler radar for you, and we have the...
over the next couple of hours as it moves our way. If there's any good news, and we're just trying to find some good news about this, is that this hurricane is moving right now at 14 miles an hour and could in fact move a little bit more quickly. So it's going to move in here and out of here quickly, so there won't be that much time for that much rain to fall. Now with Hurricane Francis, we had about 14 to 18 inches of rain because it sat on us for about 24 to 36 hours. This is going to be in here. By midnight tonight, this will hit us, and by noon tomorrow, this will already be well the eastern side of Grand Bahama. That eye making a line that goes like this with the forecast track, bringing it
out unless you really had to. But here's that radar perspective. We see the eye of the storm there. We were speaking to somebody in Freeport earlier, and it does look very much like part of that eye, at least, could move right on over there as it moves over Grand Bahama Island and continues moving to the west at this point. But there are the bands. They're not quite making it this far to the coast in general, except this last one now.
Track from the National Hurricane Center. This is as of the 11 o'clock advisory. The storm continues in that west-northwesterly fashion until 8 o'clock tonight. It is forecast to make landfall as a Category 3 storm, a major hurricane, and we've heard Ed Rappaport this morning say there is a slight possibility it could intensify up to a Category 4 storm before making landfall somewhere here in southeast Florida. With the track, some changes we've seen. Obviously, the center of the cone of air a little further to the north this afternoon or late this morning. Broward County, Miami-Dade out of the projected path as far as a direct hit. Now remember, this storm has tropical storm force winds 205 miles in either direction from center, hurricane force winds 70 miles. So even if this is the perfect track that the hurricane takes down the center, we will still see tropical storm force winds all the way through Broward and Dade counties. Let's show you that initial track again. As you can see, west-northwest, then more northwest until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Now with this in mind, again, this is not a center line. This is just an approximation of where the center of circulation of the hurricane will go. We will still see impacts way south here in Florida. Obviously widespread power outages, trees down, damage to some homes. And you just got to keep in mind that it's not this one point that we'll see damage. It's going to be a widespread event because this hurricane continues to strengthen and continues to grow. Again, yesterday we were talking about a hurricane force core 45 miles in diameter. Today, 70 miles in either direction, making a hurricane force core of 140 miles. Once the storm moves inland, it's expected to go into tropical storm up around the Orlando area and continue along the eastern seaboard Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday. As far as the satellite imagery with the storm, you can see it's getting pretty much textbook right now. It's symmetrical. You draw lines half and half, and it outflow in all four quadrants. Very healthy, very good outflow coming in all four quadrants, meaning that high pressure is aloft and the storm continues to thrive and obviously strengthen as it moves off to the west. Very warm waters in this vicinity. We're talking sea surface temperatures of around 84 degrees Fahrenheit. It was over some cooler waters in the Bahamas with sea surface temperatures up around 79 due to some upwelling. But as it moves over those warm waters, we expect it to again intensify until possibly a Category 4, but more than likely just a major strong Category 3 hurricane as it approaches southeastern Florida. We'll show you the latest visible satellite imagery. Again, we only get this imagery during daylight hours, so we show you from dawn up until this point. And again, you can see the eye now just to the extreme north and western parts of Great Abaco. It looks like it'll skim the northern parts of Grand Bahama. The projected path takes this storm on off to the west-northwest again, somewhere here across southeast Florida. Now, just to show you an idea, here's the state of Florida from the state border all the way down through the Keys. If you transpose this image of the hurricane,
although we do think there'll be some further strengthening as we've been talking about before landfall. I guess the good news is it's running out of time to strengthen, but Category 3, of course, is going to be destructive for some parts up to the north of us.
And we can't rule out a possibility of a 4 either at this point.
That's right. We're forecasting towards the upper end of the Category 3, so Category 4 is possible.
Okay, earlier today there was a lot of convection on the south side, then it became symmetrical, now it's a little bit lopsided. I mean, there'll be fluctuations in the structure of the storm as it approaches, correct?
No, there are fluctuations in the structure, there are fluctuations in the track, which we've been calling wobbles, there are fluctuations in the intensity. And the big picture, though, is we've got a hurricane that's going to be making landfall late tonight, and tropical storm conditions will precede that. Hopefully everybody's done with their preparedness activities.
Tell the people here in South Florida, even though the core is going to go to our north, can we put the source one up behind me? Upstairs, thanks. Tell the people, you know, in South Florida, Ed, that if the core is going to our north, we'll maybe escape the heart or the most severe damage of the hurricane, but explain the influence of this hurricane even down here in South Florida.
Yeah, there's a relatively close analogy with Hurricane Francis, and we know what that did along the coast and even inland. Loss of power, tree limbs coming down, some sign damage. That's what will occur if the center moves ashore up to the north, north of Palm Beach County, like Francis did. Now, if there's a little jog to the left or to the southwest, then of course the conditions are going to be worse down here. So we have to prepare for tropical storm conditions and some areas getting hurricane conditions in Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade.
And that's why the hurricane warnings remain in effect, correct?
That is right, because some portion of the warning area is going to get hurricane force winds, and they're going to be arriving by sundown tonight along the coast, tropical storm conditions before.
As far as storm surge here, I know it's going to be an offshore wind for the most part, but is there going to be a storm surge problem down here?
Not a major storm surge problem, except that because of these offshore winds, we're going to have some west winds blowing on the west sides of the Keys and the barrier islands, so there could be some run-up, some surge on the west side, but it's much less than what would have occurred if we were on the north, if we had the northern part of it.
Important, and like I say, every person is different, every hurricane is different, and it's like just a different personality, and whether they're steered by something different than the other hurricane was, or whether their structure is different, whether they're lopsided or symmetrical, whatever the category is, whatever the worst weather is inside of them, every one of them behaves differently.
Allá nada más de la costa se está moviendo en oeste, hacia el oeste. Es un rumbo justo al norte de rumbo oeste. O sea, si usted tiene barco o avión, si yo le digo a ustedes que en vez de 270 grados se está moviendo a 275 o 280 grados en su dirección, pues eso le da a usted una idea de que no es puro oeste, pero todavía no podemos clasificarla exactamente como oeste-noroeste. En todo caso, sus vientos se mantienen en 115 millas por hora, pero atención que la presión barométrica sigue bajando. Cuando llegué esta tarde estaba en 955 milibares, va por 950. Este huracán pudiera fortalecerse, lleva ya varias horas con vientos de 115 millas por hora, pero pudiera fortalecerse antes de llegar a tierra. No sé si alcanzará a ser categoría 4, pero no importa, cualquier incremento es una mala noticia.
The tropical storm warning from Cape Sable up to the Ocklawaha River, and a hurricane watch in case it gets closer to the west coast from Inglewood up to the mouth of the Swanee River. There's also a tropical storm watch still in effect for the Florida Bay and the middle and upper Florida Keys. We need to talk about the hazards of the hurricane. The first thing we want to worry about is the storm surge. We're expecting 4 to 8 feet of storm surge in the northwestern Bahamas. We've had some ham radio reports of 7 feet already. On the Florida East Coast, near and to the north of where the center crosses the coast, we're expecting 4 to 7 feet, and that's really from the Palm Beach area all the way up to the Cape. It's very important to know that it's not just the storm surge, but these very large battering waves on top of that storm surge. One of the buoys about 125 miles east of the Cape is currently reporting 24-foot waves. And we can learn the lesson in Hurricane Ivan that those breaking waves on the immediate coast can do considerable damage. We also want to mention that in Lake Okeechobee, we could have 5 feet of storm surge on the east side of the lake as the center moves to the north of it. And also on the Gulf Coast side of Florida, we don't want to forget about that. In areas where we have the strong onshore flow, we could have 3 to 6 feet of storm surge there, primarily north of the Tampa Bay area. The wind, the pressure is actually dropping a little bit. The upper level environment is very favorable. It's going to be moving over the Gulf Stream. We could see a little bit of additional strengthening there. We also want to be sure that people understand that this is not just a coastal event. We think that the red area here of hurricane force winds will likely spread about 100 miles inland across the peninsula, with tropical storm force winds over a much larger area, which will indeed knock down some trees and cause power outages again. We want to be very careful about people in mobile homes. A mobile home is not the place to be in any hurricane or a strong tropical storm. We're also forecasting 5 to 10 inches of rain and some isolated tornadoes along with Hurricane Jeanne. This is Max Mayfield reporting from the National Hurricane Center in Miami.
And that was Max Mayfield, and we're looking again at Doppler radar where the eye of the storm is, again, just to the northwest of the northwest tip of Grand Bahama Island, and it's moving just north of due west. And out here in the Atlantic, in between the Bahamas now and the east coast of Florida, are the more destructive rain bands near the center of circulation. But all of these are pinwheeling down and giving us some very gusty winds. And again, Fort Lauderdale gusting to tropical storm force at the last hour. Satellite imagery shows a more well-defined center of circulation, but if I drew a line due west, you can tell that it has ridden a little bit to the north of that due west line, so that motion should continue.
There on the eastern eye wall of the storm, illuminated by the setting sun in the west, and here you can see this kind of a swirl. This is the very, very worst of the weather is right in that swirl, very close to the center. And they can almost see the feathery appearances here. That's the core of the storm, and look how large that is. Here's Broward, here's Miami-Dade County, and with it gradually moving to the north, this core will just, again, barely miss us. Very similar to what happened in Francis. Here you can see the eye, and let me trace my finger on it. Notice how it is moved just barely to the north of that line there, which is 27 degrees north. So the tropical storm force winds are blowing into Broward County now, definitely into Palm Beach County. They will likely have hurricane force winds there, and of course all the way up the coast. Miami-Dade County a little bit less than that. Here's a close-up view of the radar. Again, we've got basically this kind of a nuisance tropical storm force gusts and the rainy, squally, not really nice weather all the way through South Florida. But where it gets really bad is right in there. See, the color changes to green, almost a circle. That's where they have the damaging winds. Then the closer in you get, it gets very bad, very fast near the center. The worst weather was up to the north of the center. Now it's rotated down. Let me look at Miami-Dade and Broward counties a little close up here, and we'll show you. We've got Broward County still getting the worst weather. We've got a report from Pompano Beach of tropical storm force wind gusts up there, and you can see this one rather heavy band now moving through Miami-Dade counties. Check out the Keys quickly. We'll show you north, the Keys, the upper Keys, Ocean Reef down to Key Largo, some rain there. Down to the lower Keys, check it out. This is ground return. It is actually kind of a pleasant day down there. Now, the 5 o'clock position, 27.1 and 78.8, 130 miles northeast of us. Winds of 115 miles per hour, gusting to 140, and the movement is west at 15 miles per hour, the pressure at 2805. One change here we have to the watches and warnings. There's now a tropical storm watch all the way up around the Big Bend of Florida. We are still under a hurricane warning, as are the Northwest Bahamas. The central Bahamas have been dropped out of that. They were under a hurricane watch or a tropical storm warning, and now they are not any longer. So the hurricane warning is still in effect for us. Christy.
All right, thanks, Don. Jeanne has already pummeled the Bahamas.
Of Hurricane Jeanne. Amazing.
And you were looking live at Stewart, where our Jawan Strader is standing by. I'm sure he can't hear us, but I want to assure everyone.
Yes, I can.
Oh, yes, and now you're behind the wall and you're safe.
Yes, I can.
Go ahead and finish your thought, Jawan.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
I'm sorry about that, Maggie. Okay, no problem. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever imagined a storm to be this powerful. Yes, I've been all over the country. I've covered stories, I've covered tornadoes, but never have I seen so much devastation. Never have I seen a storm this powerful as a hurricane. And I tell you, you just look, if you look about, you can see the trees swaying back and forth. You can see the debris, you can see the twisted metal, and you can see just how powerful a hurricane can be, especially Hurricane Jeanne. I never ever, Maggie, thought I would ever be part of such a powerful storm. I've been told that hurricanes are strong, but like a lot of other people, maybe some of them that are out and about right now, a lot of other people, I didn't take it seriously until I covered a storm, a hurricane, and until I was part of it.
Now you know firsthand, Jawan, our jaws are dropped here. We are glued to this picture. We can't believe you're standing in it. The rain is coming in sideways for those of you listening on the radio. And why don't you go ahead and set the scene, describe what you see for those people who are not watching us on TV, Jawan.
Yes, let me describe to you right now. The winds are coming in. They have to be coming in at, as Brian Norcross said, they have to be coming in at close to 100 miles per hour, if not more. These winds coming in at a 45-degree angle right now. And as you can see, the trees have always been a way for me to kind of measure the storm, and you can see also pieces of debris flying. And let's pan over to another tree, and you can see just the trees in the wind, some of them looking like they won't even be able to take it as the winds continue to pound this area. And if we pan over a little bit to the gas station area, you can see a little bit of the damage over there as well caused by the storm. Matter of fact, there's a piece of debris right there. I don't know if you caught that debris, Kurt. It's flying in the street right now. There's a piece of debris from the winds, which are picking up stronger and stronger. Take a look at this car over here, okay? I'm gonna show you. Look at this car, and if you can see, this car is just moving. It's a car that's for sale, believe it or not, sitting in front of this gas station. The wind is basically shaking this car, almost lifting it up. That's how strong Hurricane Jeanne force winds are at this moment as it makes its way across Stewart. And we are protected by this wall, but I tell you, as soon as I step out, it's a totally different feeling. And just take a listen.
Great reason to stay indoors is to stay away from any of those downed power lines. I'm starting to feel some rain coming down now, so perhaps another band of rain is coming through. Yes, definitely it's coming through, and the winds appear to be picking up a bit.
Very much. Sonia Crawford, it is really a very bad situation there. We want her to get somewhere safe.
She's doing all she can to hang on there.
That's right. We're going to take some pictures right now of what it looks like in Stewart as well. This is Roger Losey out there. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to hear us, but look at the gusting behind him.
Can you hear us, Roger?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. We moved on the other side of the parking lot here underneath the overhang of the drive-thru. Just to give you an idea, take a look at this. These are the lights from across the way shining back this way, and this really gives you an idea of how fast this wind is blowing. This is what they talk about when they say sheets of rain. It is absolutely howling. You can see some of the debris that is flying by here from some of the overhang that's coming apart just to the right of us. Definitely hurricane force winds. Don said earlier that the eye of the storm is not too far away from here, and I got to tell you right now, we are looking forward to seeing it. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Roger, it sounds like it's really just kind of taking your breath away and everything you can do to hang on there and not blow away yourself.
Yeah, well, we're kind of braced in between the side of a van and the post on this overhang here as the overhang above us kind of comes apart on the other side. Well, we wanted to come over here because I don't know if you could see earlier. Just Bob, come look over here. Look over this way, Bob. Look at this rain and wind. Unbelievable. You can't even see our satellite truck, which is probably just 30 feet away because the wind is howling so bad. Look at this.
Roger, have you seen?
Yeah, it is. It's really kicking up now.
Roger,
go ahead,
have you
guys.
seen much
I can hear you.
Have you seen much in the way of like flying debris or tree limbs flying around behind you?
Yeah, we have seen a few tree limbs from not too far away from here. We heard them snap and they flew back behind us, but mostly it's this overhang. Bob, go up here and show what's coming down. You see this overhang up here? These little metal slats are coming out. And I mean, I know it looks like we're
the eye during the early morning hours, probably sometime after about 2 o'clock in the morning, but you are just now starting to get on the outer fringes of the eye. And once that starts to come on shore, boy, the storm's really going to start piling the water up primarily on the outer barrier islands. And I'm going to zoom in even closer. Yeah, go ahead, Willard. Go ahead, Willard.
Yeah, Roland, I hear you fine. When you were talking about the barrier islands in this area, actually a little further to the south of us, while they're obviously very concerned about this situation here, they're also very worried about the lake. We heard the emergency officials talking about
going back across over here.
Yeah.
Okay, they do have a safe space though, and they'll be able to go under that
right away.
Stairwell.
And we will check back with them in a little while. I'm sure Roger's wife and all their friends are wondering if they're okay. So we will definitely check back with them in a few minutes when the conditions are much safer. But for now, we want to go way down where it's much calmer in Miami-Dade County. John Henry Smith was at one of the shelters. A number of folks were evacuating the low-lying areas and went to shelters. And some of them even got a bit of a surprise.
You guys there?
Oh, Roger's back.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're here. We're okay. Here, Bob, come over here. Go over there to show. See that Stewart police van and that concrete post? We were like right in between there, and see the pieces of metal that are coming down from the overhang there? Well, we thought that was
the western edge of that eye wall, so it's very heavy. The eye wall is not moving that fast right now. I'm not sure if the forward motion is still 13. We'll see what happens on the 11 o'clock advisory. But again, tremendous amounts of wind and rain right now, relentless rains, and they'll be there for at least the next 30 to 40 minutes like that, so be careful.
Like that, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah, the storm's moving pretty slowly right now, so he's on the western edge of the core and near the western edge of the eye wall, so all that is moving from east to west.
Now, as we look at that loop in that box there on the screen, this looks as though it's going to make landfall fairly soon, yes?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, but it's not racing toward the coastline. Sometimes these things, you know, if the front end of the eye wall touches the coastline, sometimes they do a little dance. They can, like a top, it can bounce back off. It could wobble a little bit. Until the entire center gets on the coast, you really don't know exactly where it's going to make landfall. But that could continue for a little while. It could bounce off the coast and bounce back again.
And when we say make landfall, does that mean the entire eye has passed over land, so just the outer edge of it doesn't count?
Doesn't count. Yeah.
Okay, so we're then, all right, then in that case, all that blue at the center means it's still over water, so it's still got to move in. Okay.
How wide is that eye, Bill?
I would estimate about 40 miles, maybe 45 miles. Now, Francis was like 65 to 70 miles wide, but this eye is larger than it was earlier, so that's going to take it longer to make its way on shore, too.
And as it makes its way on shore, that's where
Francis, you know, where Francis came ashore, basically, very close.
Now, where Dave is, and again, we've got Dave's pictures, and Dave, feel free to jump in. We've got your microphone still, of course. Bill, the sustained winds here at this point?
They would be, well, he's probably near the sustained winds of 75, 85, and eventually they'll be near 100 miles per hour because they'll be near the western edge of the eye wall.
And just visually, look at that picture and think for a second. That's 75 miles per hour. And Category 3 is
115.
115,
and that's a good point.
Imagine, just visually think for a second. That's a 75 mile per hour sustained wind, and it's going to go up to 115.
If he's in the direct
I'll tell you
hit
what,
of the eye wall.
I'm having a hard time imagining another 40 miles an hour out here, but we're going to stick with it as long as we can.
Well, you know, you all make a good point. Everybody just says, oh, it's a category, say it was a Category 1. Oh, it's just a 1, I'll be fine. Well, look what 75 mile-an-hour winds look like, you know?
And when we say sustained, that's the key thing. It's not just a gust for a couple of minutes. It's a sustained, a long duration of a certain wind speed, which can cause some problems, obviously.
And the definition of a sustained wind is the average wind speed over a minute. So, you know, you take the average wind speed over a minute, you average it out to 75. A gust is the average wind speed over 3 to 5 seconds. So this is a sustained wind of, say, 75. And I'm just estimating this, but, you know, based on the radar, but, you know, maybe 75 to 85.
Give or take, exactly. Bill, when the eye, the western wall, makes landfall, how long do you think it's going to take until that whole thing is over land at the rate it's going right now?
Well, if it's 13 miles an hour and the eye is about 40 miles wide, just that part alone will take 3 hours. So it could take 3 to 4 hours for the whole center to make it on shore unless it speeds up.
And then, Bill, what we saw with Francis, too, was that back end of Francis was almost as fierce, if not fiercer, than the front end. I mean, do we have that to look forward to as well?
Well, the east side, Dave, is not quite as severe as what you're going through now. The south side is, so if the system of all things were to move west-northwest, just picture this. If you're due west of the eye and the center moves west-northwest, then you're going to get into the really heavy bands of wind and rain that are on the southern edge of the central dense overcast or of that core. So that would be awful for Stewart and just points north if that happened.
Yeah, that could be devastating for Stewart. I mean, if this thing heads due west, we get hit by an eye wall, the eye comes over us, and then Jeanne finally decides it wants to head due north, and we get it again on the back end, right?
Yeah, that would not be a pretty picture, no. I mean, that's also possible because once this thing does move inland, it is going to make a turn to the right. Just how sharp a turn we don't know, and where that's going to happen we don't know in Florida yet.
And Dave, you're back in the picture, but when we were just looking at the wind that was sustained more or less 75 miles per hour, now imagine all the debris that's lying out, you know, lying around out there. And now when you see that kind of wind, put the two of those things together, and now, I mean, it's perfectly clear why there is so much concern for the people in that area tonight.
Yeah, Belkis, this is going to be devastating. I mean, one of the worst spots that we saw was the beach on Fort Pierce. There were piles upon piles of this stuff, and this could turn into literally the world's biggest pipe bomb. I mean, you talk about all the shrapnel that is literally just sitting around this area waiting to be launched by this hurricane, and it's happening. I mean, we saw a tree come through here. We've watched some other ones, and you know, you can't be sure that that tree was snapped by Jeanne. It may have been sitting on the side of the road waiting for the garbage man to pick it up.
Yeah, which is what I think it was your stat earlier, Dave. You said only 20% of the debris that had been left by the previous storm had been picked up. That leaves a lot of stuff that had been perhaps in organized piles, but it was still out in piles. So that's a lot of stuff to get picked up and tossed around.
Yeah,
Hey,
and you know, go ahead, Bill.
Dave, I just had a question. How far inland are you?
We're well inland. If you'd have to look at the map, but we are on US 1. We are not on the intercoastal. The intercoastal is east of us, and it's a ways east. It's not within sight. So we've got the barrier islands back beyond that, and then you've got the intercoastal, and then you've got probably at least a mile or two before you get to us here on US 1. But that just exposes us to more debris because, you know, when you're on the beach, you worry about that storm surge. But here, I mean, my curiosity just, I don't know if it's journalistic curiosity or just idiocy, but your curiosity wants you to take you out there, and in another hurricane, we may do it. But there's so much stuff out here that we just can't chance it.
Yeah, Dave, just one other thing. There are some pretty heavy cells.
Center of the storm, we were just looking at those live pictures a second ago from right there in Stewart, and you can see that he is in the very worst part of the storm that is on shore at the moment. You've got this very, very strong band of rain now that is wrapping around the core of the eye of the storm and moving extremely rapidly to the south. And those winds are hurricane force and gusting probably to 100 miles per hour or even more. And what Roger is eagerly awaiting is this part here, of course, the eye of the storm, the only part of the storm where if you have to be in a hurricane, you want to be there in the eye, but then the problem is how do you get out? The winds now that he said are from the north will be calm for a while when it goes through the eye, and then they will be obviously from the opposite direction, perhaps just as strong. Now, even though it looks worse on this side than this side, remember, we're using the radar from Melbourne, and Melbourne can see here, and by the time that the signal gets all the way across over to that side, a lot of the signal is used up. And the return back to the radar is a little misleading. But believe me, the winds are just as strong on that side as they are on the front side of the storm. All right, let's go to the other graphic source here, and we'll put it into motion for you. If we can go over to graphic 6. Okay, this is even better. We're looking at about an 8-hour time span and time difference, and you can see the path of the eye of the storm, how it is gradually wobbled around, but the mean path has been slightly north of due west, maybe a direction of about 275 or 280 in a compass direction. So it's just barely beginning to turn to the north, but the thought is that it is going to turn a little more sharp to the north when it gets on shore and some of the frictional forces take over. Notice this other band of rain now is almost down into the lower Keys. We have rain now that's extending southward through Miami-Dade County and through Broward County, but right now know that it is about as bad as it's going to get, because as the storm continues to move parallel to us and then away, it's going to improve a little bit. We're still looking at live pictures there from Stewart. And Roger, I can see the eye is not over you yet, but I don't know if you can hear me, Roger, but you've got another few minutes to go, so just hang in there. But I'm curious to know if we're off the screen when this happens, you tell me the sequence of events that occurs and how rapidly it goes from stuff blowing around like that, hurricane force, to the wind calming down. So we're standing by here ready to go to the National Hurricane Center, I believe, in just a few minutes. But until we do, there you can see those sheets of aluminum blowing off. That's basically your carport type aluminum. You know, they're pretty lightweight, but if they hit somebody or something, they certainly can act like a razor blade. There you can see them sliding across. You've got winds of at least hurricane force to do that. And Roger was trying to explain this how